about that. Emu didn't want us to keep talking. We were obviously reaching a breaking point there, something important we weren't supposed to talk about. So, kind of like Lelucia, but we're back. My power just blipped off for a second and it turned right back on. So hopefully that won't happen again. This is actually a really good chance to say for anyone. I think we have some people here. I haven't seen any chats yet, but I'm presuming. I just want to say, I don't know if anyone saw the crazy tornadoes that happened last night. Thoughts and prayers out to everyone in Mississippi. I don't know if you guys caught up on this. Maybe some other places too, but I know Mississippi got hit real hard. And I'm feeling those winds too. I don't have a tornado, but those winds are messing with my power and stuff. So I even told Hidden this morning that something like this could happen. If it happens again, then we'll probably stop, but I don't think it will. I think that was just a random thing. Should be all right. But
Monkey D Dragon is pulling up on the stream soon. I think that's what's happening.
Yep, the winds. Yep.
Yeah.
And even the lightning. Even though I had to comfort my dog this morning because he was like freaking out so bad at the thunderstorm that we had. So, oh, that's okay. Now I understand. I was like, man, I see viewers, but I can see chats on YouTube, but not here, and it's because I didn't have the multi-stream option on. So we're good now. So real quick, I do want to get into some of those super chats that I missed before, we got Lucia blasted. So I'm going to go back. I think one was Mr. Bushido's. Okay, Mr. Bushido, I saw you super chatted €2 and you said Eve Tree is on Vera. As it stated, it has many wars. I mean, the Sunlight Tree Eve is the one that sticks through the red line, right? I don't think...
I think he's Adam Tree. He might be talking about that.
Oh, Adam Tree. I could I mean, I could see that too. So. Yeah, because Vera is going to be important, right? Because it was mentioned in the Road to Laugh Tale is like, could this have the last road poneglyph? So I could see that being important.
I'm still, part of me is still hung up on that as like, they probably just came up with like another, they didn't have enough options for us to guess between, so they just threw like a random fucking island in there. Yeah. To like throw people like, oh wait, could it be this too? And it's like no, like, oh yeah, people were definitely talking about Vera before today. Like, yeah, oh, everyone's talking about where could the poneglyph for the last one be? Could it be here, or on Vera? It's like no one was talking about that. It's like.
I look at it the same way. Like it was either just a throw in, or it's the reverse where it's like, okay, it's clearly this one, so we have to disguise it by putting the other two. But
why did they set up that in a Road to Laughdale? Like, oh, exactly. There's also this extra special island that wasn't mentioned yet in the story that we're gonna go to, and this is actually where it is, and it's called Vera, and here it is, like 100 volumes or 100 chapters in advance or whatever in this like little side thing. It's just like. Yeah, I know. The Vera thing was funny to me.
Yeah, no, me too. Because I was like, Vera, bro. Like, why not put Lodestar? Like,
put like literally anything else. Like Vera, like.
Yeah. But Eam Chaozu, I think I'm saying your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. He said if we go to Vera, then we need to get Willie Karen. I don't know if you remember Willie Karen or not. Physicist. Yeah. So
anything that is real, or like anything that is dream can become a reality, or whatever the quote was. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Which I think is really relevant for a lot of what we're seeing with Egghead right now too, with like like holograms, like are they real, are they living? Like that was settled a long time ago, that type of thing. So I do see that, but I probably do agree with what you're saying though. Like Vera seems kind of like a throw in almost, right? It's just like
it's just like we're so far in the story now that we don't have many options left in terms of like notable locations to explore. So it's like we have to make the list at least like look like you have to think about it for a second.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, and if anything, it just led us to even think about Vera when we weren't, right? It's just
exactly. It completely sidetracked our train of thoughts on Vera. It worked. It did its job.
I want to get to another super chat from Endika Wijaya, if I'm saying your name right. I know you chat all the time, and I always say that. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I hope I am. You haven't complained, so it must be pretty close. Super chatted 50,000 Indonesian. I forget what they're called. It's not rupees, but it's close to that. Reread Sabaody. I think so. Reread Sabaody today. Kind of funny now seeing Kid's crew fared well at Rayleigh's hockey blast. There's also a freed slave giant who was grateful to the Straw Hats. That freed slave giant I totally forgot about, because remember like he was with Rayleigh, right, originally, right? I think I can't.
Yes, Jean Bart.
Oh, it's John. Yeah, and oh, dude, and that connects to Blackbeard's like the other side of the coin with like these. I don't know if you want to call it the throne wars or whatever. These.
Yeah, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, so that is interesting. But it is funny. I think going back to Sabaody and looking at like how a lot of those people were portrayed. I mean, obviously, Kid had the highest bounty, so that was always, we were always hyped for him. Like, oh, he's got to be strong or whatever. And it is kind of funny, like looking back on that and like he has, if anything, he's gotten worse. Like, you know what I mean? Like fighting Big Mom was cool, but it's like in general, it almost looks worse.
I still subscribe to the idea that if it weren't for Law, like I think Law was carrying that fight anyway, like for the most part. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yes,
I definitely agree.
I do think he's somehow managed to look worse than he used to. But that might just be recency bias. I don't want to get caught into the spiral of recency bias. Like we just saw this chapter, it's super hype, so now it's like change the whole narrative on Kid. I want to, of course we'll give him time to come back, but it does look really bad. I'm just gonna say.
Also, people in the chat are bringing up that John Bart was a different giant than the one that was saved in Sabaody. There was two.
Oh.
Like there's John Bart and another one that was saved. So that one we still don't know. So that.
Oh, okay.
I definitely believe you guys, because in my head I was like, okay, like 100% John Bart got released there, and he like is a close to a giant if he's not actually one. You know what I mean? He's huge. But I was like, I was like thinking in my head, like I'm pretty sure the guy with Rayleigh was someone else, right? That's what I was thinking. So that's really interesting because
I missed that.
And that also makes me think of like the giant that saw what happened with Big Mom and he ran away. Like there's two giants now that are kind of like, like lingering plot threads almost. Like Oda's like, I need a way for people to know this happened, so I'm just going to use giants to like bring this back like later on, like the Sabaody stuff, like because only so many people know what happened in the thing, I guess, you know what I mean? Like we're like, I mean, obviously they know Luffy punched him, but like Rayleigh knocking everyone out, and like Rayleigh, not everyone knows exactly what happened, so it's like that's also a thing where like the giants like I know you're a good person, whatever, because of whatever happened there, that kind of stuff.
I saw some people who said it in the chat. I think it was KMI in the chat said this is an interesting thing. They said Loki was the only person Lola didn't want to marry. Right?
Is that how it went down?
Did she like wanted to marry like everyone, right? Except for Loki? The one dude that she didn't. Isn't that sus?
Is that what I don't remember? Is it that Lola? Well, I guess because Big Mom was mad at Lola, so that's probably the reason. I just don't remember.
Yeah, because she arranged the marriage for Lola, and then Lola, the one person, I think it was because Lola wanted the freedom to decide more so, but
okay.
Also, there's like the one dude that she basically wanted to marry like anyone,
every person, right?
Except for Loki. So I wonder what that says about Loki. That's a good point.
Bro, that is a really good point. I've never thought about it that way, but that's man. I might have to do a Loki video at this point. Like
curious
that, and actually, I don't know if you remember this, but like 2 or 3 months ago, you messaged in your Discord like asking for ideas for like a fight video. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I immediately was like, Kid versus Loki. It was like it's like no hesitation because I've been waiting to see him. Like he's like the Oden of Elbaf, or you know what I mean, like that type of thing.
That hype. Yeah.
So, and Oden is for sure one of my favorite characters. Like that whole flashback, it was very long, but I love that flashback with him. So it's like maybe I'm just kind of partial to that, like that. I don't even know what you want to call his role, like that. Not anti-ruling family, not even anti, just like changing the way the world is that the country has. Like I just love that feeling, So. Hope Loki wants to do something similar, but like you're saying, he might be a bad dude. You know what I mean? Or what if it's unironically like he's so ugly?
It could be that. I was gonna say it could just be something like a joke, but no, I think it might be personality related, if anything. If I had to, because like I don't know.
Him being too ugly for Lola would be hilarious. Like that would be because like Lola wants to marry everyone, right? And she was even like a crazy pig thing, right? Whenever she was like her shadow or whatever was like the pig thing, right? And was still asking people to marry him, and it's like it's just funny that like there is somebody that's like not good enough. You know what I mean? Like that would be hilarious.
It speaks volumes. That's like, damn, man. Like you really have to, you have to have anti-Riz if that's the case. Like I don't know.
Exactly, dude. Like,
Like,
oh, that would be so funny, dude. He's just
Yeah.
and like it'd be so cool too if he was like really powerful. Like he came in just flexing his hockey all the time, and Big Mom's like, oh damn, like she's even impressed. And then for some reason Lola's like no, dude, like you're too ugly. Like or I don't like your clothes, or something where it's like, despite all the greatness, despite like there's a guy who finally is happy to marry Lola, like all this stuff is set up. She's like, nah, like there's some like minor thing that's like, like this is the one guy I won't marry. Like that would be hilarious. Honestly, that'd be Oda level stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this dude, like what he looks like,
And Endika said, what if he's too handsome, so he's not Lola's cup of tea? Like he's too good looking. That would also be hilarious.
He's the most good looking character in One Piece.
It's like a Cavendish almost. It's like
man,
she's
imagine.
like, but it's like the opposite, right? Because like Cavendish, everyone loves Cavendish, but that would be so funny if Lola like doesn't like pretty boys. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't like.
It could be.
That I would love that. I want Lola. Lola, I think I said this with Kev last stream, or maybe it was my reaction. I can't remember. But the moment in Thriller Bark where Lola's like, "Hey, my mom's a big pirate. You should hold on to this Viver card." Every time one of my friends watches the series, because I have like a dozen friends watch it because of me now, I always tell them whenever that moment happens, I'm like, "Do not forget this." Like This is the perfect example to me of how Oda brings stuff back when you least expect it, or like he says it and it's like a Chekhov's gun that like comes back 15 years later. Like, so I just love Lola, so I'd be cool with that.
When I first saw that scene, I had already like kind of caught whispers of like this character called Big Mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also managed to pick up that she had pink hair. That's all I knew. But like once I saw that scene when my first time going through and she said that, immediately the light bulb went off in my head and I was like, oh fuck. Like this is gonna I knew this was gonna be important later when I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be wild later.
I watched the series with one of my buddies who was caught up. He's been caught up for like 10 plus years, and whenever we saw that, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I was like, "Oh, we're gonna meet her, right? Like that,
Yeah.
like that. She's gonna be really strong, right?" And whenever we were watching it, that was when Whole Cake was being written. Like that's when it was coming out in the manga. So he's like, "That's where we're at right now." And I was like, "Oh!" I was like so pumped. Like, let's go. Like, I need to get caught up right now. And that's part of the reason why Whole Cake's my favorite arc too, is like it's just I got caught up during it and that was just like so much hype. So real quick, when did you get caught up on One Piece? Like what's your journey with it?
End of Whole Cake, beginning of I caught like the beginning of Wano, so I'm pretty new.
So 2018-ish you got caught up.
It's been that long? Yeah, probably around then. Yeah, it's been a while. Because I know that I was talking to when I met my wife, I was talking to her about One Piece. So that was a while ago. I mean, we've been together almost coming up on 5 years. So
wow. Hey, well, congrats.
That's thanks. Yeah.
Go have a fun celebration for that, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been a while. In reality, it's only been like one arc. But it's the longest arc in One Piece, and it's been going on forever. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And I guess this is another good question for you. How long do you think One Piece has left? Because I think we're definitely getting close to the end. Like we're obviously in the final saga. Oda is setting up the chessboard, obviously. But like you just said, like Wano was 4 years of real time, right? And so when people say like there's only 2 or 3 years left, I always look at Wano like, can Oda really like meaningfully wrap up the story from this point on in the amount of time that Wano took? Which like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's always the thing for me where I'm like, I think it's 5 years at least, just for that reason alone. But at the same time, he definitely needs to end it, like probably this decade, like before 2030, like I would say, like for sure. So I'm not sure.
So I made a video a while ago on this. It would actually benefit to update it now with like some extra additional knowledge that we have now. But in the video, I talked about it. I still believe in that original number, which was I think when I made it last year, I said like about 3 years, maybe 4, to account for the delay that COVID caused. And if you look at Oda's time frames, like every time Oda's been asked this question about how much time One Piece has left, every time he's given an answer, with the exception of the first time. The first time was the inaccurate one, okay? The first time he was asked, because this was all the way back when the series was a baby. So, obviously, he didn't have the clearest grasp on when it was going to end. I'm pretty sure his guess back then was, like, somewhere close to 2020. Way off, or maybe even, like, earlier than that. Way, way off. Let's just forget the first wrong guess. As the series developed and as he got a grasp on, like, what One Piece was, he said he finalized it by around Skypiea. Like, he finalized the plot of One Piece in his mind around Skypiea. So once he got there onward, it seems like the date that he's given for when the series is going to end has remained actually rather consistent. I'm pretty sure almost every single time, even though it's been based off, sometimes he gives percentages, sometimes he gives times. If you factor in all these numbers, it almost always lines up with roughly the year like 2023, 2024, and that was prior to COVID happening. So his release schedule got thrown off big time. So the way I see it is we still like we got probably like another couple years left, maybe, and change, like a little bit more than a couple, maybe closer to 3 years to account for like the 2 years that COVID kind of like put a big hamper on the release schedule. But like everything up until that point, like without factoring in for something you couldn't predict, like a worldwide pandemic, the release dates always lined up for the same time frame. No matter how far into the series he kept giving the same general end date, which is like, that tells me, I mean, if he keeps saying it over and over, as much as we want to believe it, he's such a masterful writer that I feel like if there's anyone that could tie up all these loose ends in only a few fell swoops, you know, the least number of writing strokes as possible, I think Oda could pull that off. I think he could tie up everything in a matter of a couple years. Because, like, look at what's happening right now. And this might lead into another question that I had for you, actually, but like we even see now, like Blackbeard's pulling up to Egghead. And this is the big question on my mind: is why is this fucking dude at Egghead right now? Well, so it's like we have everyone pulling up to Egghead. We have Saturn pulling up to Egghead. We have all the Marines pulling up to Egghead. We have all of CP0 here. We have Blackbeard presumably pulling up. We have Luffy and Vegapunk here. We have all this Void Century stuff here. Everything's pulling up on this one island. Like, I can easily see Oda knocking out a ton of plot points in one move with this one island right here, and then this by the same token doing the same with the little Law and Kid side stories. I can easily see him wrapping it up quicker than people expect, and I've been telling people this because I want them to brace for impact. I want people to brace for fucking impact, because if people are expecting this long 6-7 year journey ahead of us from now, and we get only the 2 or 3 year journey that's really fast paced, like the final saga has been so far, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say that Oda rushed it, and I take issue with that, because nowhere in his time frame up until now has he indicated he's been changing the dates around, or he's been on the very like solid timetable. So I feel like he does have a lot of this pretty much in mind for how it's going to go already. That's my long monologue on that. But
I guess my question for you said you think it's like 2 and change, maybe 3 years. So let's just say three. Let's just say 3.
Yeah.
And he gets about 40 chapters a year. So that's about 120 chapters or so. And I guess that from that perspective is where I like with the rushed thing, I can agree with you that like he's not rushed from the perspective of like he planned for this, like this is how he like wanted, like he's been expecting this to go down this way. But I can see the perspective where people say it's rushed, because like if we go from this point and say, okay, 120 chapters from now, can we cover, you know, all the endgame fights we're expecting, you know, the final war, all that stuff, and learning about the Void Century, learning about the truth of Emu, learning and going to Laugh Tale and getting, you know, the One Piece, all that kind of stuff. Like, could that happen in 120 chapters where it doesn't feel rushed, given that, you know, we've gone 1,000+ chapters in and we haven't answered a lot of these questions yet? To me, I can see that. I can see where like 120, I'm like, you know, if we go look at the last 22 chapters since Wano ended, it's been crazy, right? Like we've seen tons of reveals, but if I were to multiply that by 6, even with how crazy it was, it's possible. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I do feel like 120 is a tight amount of chapters to fit in all these plot lines. Like I'm going to feel like, okay, we're probably not going to get you know, like this person's backstory. We're probably not going to get to see these people fight. Like that's how I'm starting to feel, and I'm like, you know, we don't need these. These are expectations that, you know, we have, or maybe we're set up through the story that Oda doesn't have to deliver on. But it's like if we miss out on too many of those, I think it will feel rushed. So
Yes.
So I'm in between. I feel you. Like I definitely think like when the years he's saying, he's not misleading us. You know, like when he gives time frames, like I think he's trying to be honest. But I also think maybe like there's, I don't know if maybe he's saying 3 years, but he has 2 years already done. So he's like, you know what I'm saying? Like I have 2 years of manga already planned out. So maybe it's 5 because he has 2 years in his back pocket. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's like, you know, like fidgeting with it a little bit, but I think he's trying to be accurate for us. So I don't know. I guess that's it. Like 120 chapters seems like too little in my opinion, but
I think that's fine. What I will say is that if we're just looking at, well, let's look at two things. Let's look at the structure of One Piece as a whole, and let's look at the time frame that it's taken to write most of One Piece's arcs and sagas. Because I think a lot of our perspective is going to be skewed because of Wano, because we came off of Wano, and then prior to Wano we had, you know, pretty close to Wano we had you know, Whole Cake and Dressrosa, which were also very long. So we had all these really, really long arcs back to back to back. And now Oda's finally taken us back to shorter, more snappy arcs. But before I get to that, what I just wanted to say about the structure was that One Piece is very clearly being separated into two halves right now. The first half closed out at around the 600 chapter mark. Right now, if we're talking about a second half of One Piece, the second half would close out at around the 1200 chapter mark, if Oda's trying to designate these as part 1 and part 2. Not only that, but the nature of each side of each half of this coin has followed a parallel structure. You start with a series of islands, East Blue, Sabaody Archipelago. They break out of these islands, they go on to this adventure, deal with something with they do something with the fishmen. You know, then you have this whole arc with an island and split down. I mean, I could go into this whole thing. You have the Alabasta, the Dressrosa parallels, the Whole Cake Island, the Water 7 NES Lobby parallels, the Zoe parallel. You know, you can just keep going down the list where each half follows this kind of very mirrored structure. And you have Wano capping things off with like a ton of connections all the way back to Thriller Bark. And now we're in the Sabaody equivalent with Egghead. Yeah. So it's like Egghead's moving really fast. We have all the elements from Sabaody coming back into play. Where do we go after this? Like, I can't imagine that we're going to have we're not going to have any Wano-sized islands or like arcs to explore, with the exception of maybe Laugh Tale. Right. Or something. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I could see that because like if you think about it, like if you would have went to the start of Sabaody and you were to say in the next, I think it's like 100-something chapter.
It wasn't that many chapters.
Yeah, it's like 100-something. It's like we're gonna get split up. Luffy's gonna go to an island of another warlord, make it down to Impel Down, free out a bunch of prisoners, go to war with the whole world government and Whitebeard and all that. Ace is gonna die, all that kind of stuff in just 100. We would have probably said you're crazy. So I think that's fair. I think that is actually really fair. I guess like I was saying, part of the issue, like I can see that, it's just there's so many things that Oda has set up that we're expecting, which, you know, like the writer sets these things up so it's a reasonable expectation, but at the same time, like he doesn't have to do those. So, you know, maybe he can work around it, but it's like, you know, like we need to see but we need to at least learn a lot about like Shanks and Mihawk's history, just like a random thing. Shanks and Blackbeard's history. Probably need to see Shanks and Blackbeard clash in some way, shape, or form before the story ends. Luffy and Blackbeard clash. Luffy and the government clash. Potentially Blackbeard and like there's so many, you know, and again,
not all those are necessarily guaranteed. Like they don't have to happen. Some of those.
Yeah, I guess it's just like if we don't get any history on Shanks and Mihawk, like I feel like people would 100% feel let down. Like we need a full-on Zoro versus Mihawk fight, which should be like a couple chapters at least, right? And I guess I don't know. I guess for me, there's so many endgame things that we have, at least what I feel are reasonable expectations for, that it's kind of like I can see why people just feel like it'd be rushed. Like there are going to be things left out if he does finish it in 120. where people will feel disappointed. Like I feel that way with some things in Wano. Like we didn't see Ryuma's grave. It's like some random things. Like Zoro's like, I'm gonna give up my sword to go to Ryuma's grave, and we never saw it. Like they showed it in the anime, but we never went there in the manga. So it's like random things.
Maybe this will put it in perspective. So do you know what was the chapter that Gear 5th? What was the chapter number that Gear 5th?
1044.
1044. What chapter are we at now?
79. 1079.
All right. So what's the change between those two chapters? What's
well, 36 if you count 1044 or 35.
Yeah. So roughly 36 chapters. Now let's think about how much has happened in those 36 chapters. Let's think about how much has happened in the past 36 chapters since Luffy got knocked out by Guernica and Kaido. How much has happened in those 36 chapters? An absolutely absurd amount of things and developments and things that we've learned have happened in just 36 chapters. Nika stuff, like you already know. I mean, you know as much as me. So like,
I think. Yeah, I think that's definitely valid, especially the last 22. The last 22 since we left. But it's funny because I can also look back at chapters, let's say like 1051 to 1057, like the end of Wano, and I feel like Oda could have really sped that up. Like that's like 6 chapters because like it was Green Bull showing up and learning about Pluton and the crew escaping, pretty much, right? There's like the main things that happen. And like, you know, like 51, I think, is when Momonosuke is like crowned the Shogun or whatever, which is like is a necessary chapter. But so for me, it's like I agree, but at the same time, he does have some chapters still where it's like, okay, I felt like there could have been way more here, like that. You know what I mean? Like we could have really. I mean, yeah. So I feel like he's not going 100% yet. So I guess that's my feeling is like he's going. The pace he's going doesn't make me feel like he's trying to hurry up and end it. But he says he is, so I'm like kind of torn, you know. Like it is fast. It's fast, but it's like in Egghead, we've had like for this. I brought this up during my stream. You brought it up too, and Par brought it up. I thought it was hilarious. We all said it like a couple chapters ago. Why did we get that Ohara reminder when we just had a Ohara chapter right before that? Right? It's like small things like that. I'm like, Oda's still throwing in stuff that we don't really need, and like this is like kind of important, but like even last chapter, how we started with the York stuff, like some of it's useful. How she's like, I don't destroy this part of the lab. It's important. We don't know what that is yet. Some of it, I'm like why did like he's showing this to us to backfill. Give her the
alibi. He's given her the alibi to explain how the hell what the dumb shit that happened at the end of the previous chapter is explained.
But the question is, it still to me is causing all sorts of issues because. Like S-Bear was with her and S-Bear didn't show up until after CP0 arrived, right? And so I'm like, how did she get all the Seraphim away for a little bit into a place where nobody saw him or talked to him? Like it's almost like a bigger issue. So I guess my point is just like, I don't know, like Oda could have used that time for something else, but you know, obviously he can do what he wants, but it's like sometimes I'm like, are you really trying to end this in 100 chapters? Yeah. You know?
The man's not perfect. He definitely could. I mean, there's times where he could use the real estate on page a lot better. The way I see it though is, and this is how he's always written, is like Oda is 90% setup, 10% payoff. Yeah. So it's like this guy will set up things unendingly, and it'll feel like at times is this really necessary? Do we need to spend time on this or this? Mm-hmm. And then by the end of like when he's ready to tie the bow on everything, I would say most of those details get tied back in by the end. Could he have done it a little bit more optimally? Could he have done it with a little bit less panel space? Sure. But at the end of the day, like this is one of the things that Oda is famous for, is making all these setup, like taking the time to set up all these various things. And then in the span of only a few chapters, in just a couple swipes, resolving everything all together. It's like imagine just having like a big canvas with all this messy paint all over it, and this dude just does this and it becomes a full canvas. It becomes like a full painting.
It's true.
And it's like that's pretty impressive, and that's what he does with his arcs a lot of the times, where he just has this messy fucking canvas of all these details that we're like, how is he going to resolve all this by the end of the arc? And then most of the time, because I know Wano people have complaints, a lot of the time, and this is what we love about One Piece, is he just does this, and then it all comes together. So I feel like when it comes to the smaller arcs like Wano, Dressrosa, blah blah blah, maybe he doesn't have the clearest vision on how he wants to resolve everything and make everything finish. But when it comes to the core story of One Piece, like the overall plot, how it's going to end his entire life's work, I think this man has a very clear image of how he's going to wrap things up. And that's why I think the final saga has felt so fast-paced, is because there's just so much, I feel like, intentionality behind almost every single chapter, that even though we have that little Ohara moment, that doesn't overshadow the fact that every single chapter, I mean, we have had non-stop wild developments and like crazy things happening. So like I can forgive maybe like one or two of those hiccups. That could have been an editor thing where the editors just like put this in there for people that don't know what's going on.
Right, yeah.
You know? We got to make this chapter as hype as possible or whatever. I don't know what their logic is, but... And
I guess piggybacking off of that, 100% agree, but don't you think that setup kind of leads to the idea that Oda might take longer than he's expecting, because he tends to set things up for so long? Like he might say 3 years because he has like 3 years of events to show, but he's like, well, I might need an extra 2 or 3 years to set those things up, you know? Like that's kind of my thing.
Moog in the chat just said it perfectly. My mindset on this is that if most of One Piece is the 90% setup, we are in the 10% payoff right now.
That's fair.
I think that if we look at like One Piece as a whole, as like all the smaller arcs kind of represent One Piece as a whole, right? They all have these kind of repeatable structures. They have these long setups and really satisfying quick finishes. If we look at One Piece as a whole, I could see that being the case too, where One Piece is this 1,000 or like 1,200 chapter epic, but in the last 100 chapters of those 1,200, it just goes ballistic. Like it goes balls to the wall, crazy. Yeah. And I think that's going to be what the final saga for One Piece is. And we're expecting all these crazy fights, but think about Marineford. Think about how many crazy matchups, how many crazy moments, how many fighters, how many big characters showed up at Marineford and had at least a few panels of doing something cool. Yeah. There's no way we don't get that with this final saga, especially now. We see what's happening on Egghead alone. We're not even up to Laugh-Tale or Mariejois. What's happening just on Egghead is like... Clash of Titans.
I guess another part to think about this too is Oda said multiple times, like, I wanted to create a manga that had the biggest war or whatever of any story. And so I guess that's another layer for me, is like, we're obviously getting to that. Like, we're very close to that. It could even be Egghead could be the catalyst for that all to start. It probably is. But I guess another layer to that is like, he might need 100 chapters just for the war. You know what I mean? Like, if he really wants it to be the biggest war in manga history and all that kind of stuff, and like to show everything, that alone might be, because like Marineford was like 50. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we're at least, I would say at least 50 just for the war, if we're going to use that as an idea. Like, if that's a parallel, you know, I would hope it's roughly the same. So it's tough. Like, the one thing I've gathered from this is that, you know, we really have no idea.
It's true. At the end of the day, it's true. We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. So
I would love for it to go long. I would love for a really long One Piece. I mean, another 300, 400 chapters would be amazing. It's just, one, I feel bad for the guy because I mean, this has been his entire life, nonstop, no sleep. I feel bad. And also, sometimes maybe it's good to end on a high note, and One Piece is amazing right now, but if it were to go on for another 400, 500 chapters, who knows? It could fall off towards the end. It could have an Attack on Titan tier ending where people are really unhappy with how it all wraps up, and then it's like...
Yeah, or Naruto,
you know? Yes. Yeah, while you're on top, it's sometimes best to just kind of wrap things up.
I will say a chapter I've had in my head for like the ending, roughly the ending of One Piece for a while, is 1350. It's not like a super important, you know, I'm gonna reach through like all the implications in the manga, but the reason why I say that is because, like you said, the first half or whatever you want to call it of the story was about 600 chapters, right? And then if you want to say like the Wano ended around 1050, it was like 1057, but whatever. And so that's another 450. And the reason why I think that's a decent cutoff is because it's the end of the Yonko saga, and it's when Luffy like becomes Joy Boy, like he awakened. It's kind of like a not a time skip, but it's like a similar thing where he got like a gigantic power up, you know what I mean, through like a crazy thing. So it's like 600, 450, so that puts it 1050, and like if that trend were to continue, it'd be like another 300, which I know it's not like the best reasoning of all time, but that would also put us at like another like 6 years or so, which puts us like right around 2030. So that's always been like my 1350 is the max. That's like how I've been looking at it, like maybe 1200 ish, but that's how I thought.
I'll give you a very similar but better number. 1325.
Why is that?
1,000 Sanigo.
Oh, that's it. That's my new number. That's it.
That's it.
Because it's also like the ship of dreams. Like once that ship makes its journey, it's over, right? Like that's the idea.
That's the Oda number joke, like that he might be building up to is 1000 san ni go. 1325.
Bro, that might be it right there. That might be a short. That might be a short.
He ain't going over that number. I feel like if that's the number that could be a possibility, there's no way he hits that number and then goes over it.
I feel the same way.
Right?
It's the highest realistic number. That's like how I feel. Like that's like I couldn't see him go further. That's like best case scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, I want to get through some super chats because I still have some from the prior stream, and I just want to get through these. So I'm sorry, everyone, I'm so late to these, especially you, Mr. Bushido, because you have a few of them. Mr. Bushido super chatted €5 and said, "Did Bragi and Dory break a religious taboo? The fight was because when the fight was over, a winner was supposed to get the log pose and return home, but they're both home." Is basically what he's saying. So that is really interesting, Bushido. I read that earlier, and that's why I saved it because I was like, I want to like this is probably going to be a good talking point like that. Because that's true. I mean, how did they even get home, right? Like, they stopped fighting.
Shanks, you think Shanks stopped by Little Garden at some point?
And was like, the war. Oh my God, Ragnarok is coming. That's what he said. Like something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I love that. I love that. Hey, Bushido, because Ragnarok, or it could be like, you know, Shanks said, like, Shanks clearly has some in with the Giants, right? Like, he has a lot of Norse ties and all that. So what if he's like, the god of the god of Elbaf tells you to come home. Like, maybe there's like a realistic way he knew this. Like maybe Elbaf told him that. Like maybe like the king of Elbaf was like, Shanks, can you please go get Dory and Bragi? Like the god needs them back or something. You know, something like that. Because
scoops him.
Yeah, because he would. It's a good point, Bushido. I think they'd need a reason to go against what they've been talking about. You know, like they. That's a really good idea. Yeah,
great point.
I might have to go reread Little Garden. I don't know if you picked up on this in the chapter, but you know how like they split Kid's ship in half, and Kid's ship is a dinosaur. It's like remember on Little Garden how like they had giant dinosaur skeletons, because Zoro and Sanji went and caught a dinosaur and challenged each other for who was bigger, and then on Little Garden we saw two giant skeletons because they did the same thing, Dory and Bragi. They worked together to split one entirely in half.
That's funny.
And it's also, I think you probably heard this by now, but it's a callback to chapter 1 too, where it's like, don't point your gun at people if you know, and bro, just
if you're not ready, if you're not gonna shoot.
Yep.
Yeah. Or
don't point. Yeah, don't point if you're not going to be serious, or those aren't for pointing at people, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yep.
Basically, don't fuck with anyone that you're not prepared to fuck back with you.
Yep.
and fuck with you back. Yeah.
And I said this in my Lucky Roo video, and it's the reason why he's one of my favorite characters. But that was when we learned that a pirate's life is a dangerous one, right? Like this story is goofy. We're all gonna laugh. We're gonna cry. We're gonna do everything. But at the end of the day, you point a gun at someone, you're fighting. It's serious, right? Yes. Like you're throwing hands. So to me, that was like, I was hooked. I was like, bro, like the Shanks moment's great. Don't get me wrong, but like I just loved that the switch. Like, oh, you're gonna point a gun? Well, now we're talking. You know, like that is just.
I love that. Yes, I love that too.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about that is just now in retrospect, like now that we've seen this. Can we talk about the future sight thing? Now that we've seen this chapter. Almost all of that interaction Shanks had, I feel like he has to have seen in advance, right? Like, I don't know. Unless he didn't have it back then.
He knew nothing bad was going to happen, right? He knew like, all he's going to do is get mad. Like, I saw the whole thing already. Like that. And it could even be a scenario where Shanks, like, maybe he saw the future and he's like, if I just stay here and don't get mad, then nothing happens and we're all good. If I get mad, I have to destroy this whole building and people, you know, like Makino doesn't have a bar now and all this kind of stuff. It's like, that's not that alone. Like, I would rather have beer spilled on me than destroy her bar. Like, straight up, like, it's not worth it.
Well, what's funny is that he could have foreseen Higuma walking into the bar before he even walked into the bar. Like, that's what the crazy part about it is. And then, like, you think about everything about that chapter 1 now. Because I actually had a whole video on this. It was called the video is called, it's an older one. It's the thumbnail says Future Seer Shanks. Made this a while ago, and it's called Shanks, the King of Coincidence. And the whole video is talking about how Shanks keeps finding himself in these really coincidental timings where he just seemed to be there at the right time in the right place. And I talked about this like over a year ago at this point, and I was like, This guy has to see the future. There's no other explanation. He has to have future sight, like big future sight.
Wow.
And like that explains everything that he's been doing in chapter 1. How he saved Luffy last second. How he showed up to stop Higuma last second. All those things, like really convenient timing. And then like at Marineford too, he showed up right before Kobe was about to get hit. It's like it's always at the perfect time. This guy's here.
And he was even like young Marine, you just changed the future of the world.
Yeah, you just changed the future. So ever since that, I was like, okay, something's up with this guy. Yo. And then the whole idea of like, is it possible that it's either he saw Luffy eating the fruit in advance, like he knew Luffy was gonna eat the fruit. He had the box over there, and in his future sight, he's like, oh, he's gonna eat it while I'm dealing with this. And it's either that or he actually didn't see the future where Luffy ate the fruit, and then Luffy changed the future by eating the fruit, which is how he knew he found the right guy.
Yes. So Shanks can cancel observation haki, right? That's like part of his thing. Like
he's like labeled the observation killer, but we don't really know the full extent.
Right. You know. But maybe that could show us that. Well, I guess that does show us that it is possible to do that, to cancel or like to mess with it. And so we know that devil fruits have wills of their own, and this one belonged to Joy Boy, right? And so what if it's literally like the devil fruit like stop Shanks from seeing that part of the future? You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it has hockey or just whatever, but the will of the fruit was like, I need this to happen. Like, I need this kid to eat it type of deal. Or like you said, it could be Luffy, like, because Luffy's meant to change the future, and maybe Shanks was able to tell. Maybe even that's it, is like, once Luffy ate it, he's like, wait, how did I not see that? Like, something is broken. Like, what? And then he might have, like, put the pieces together, like, oh, like, the fruit, like, this is meant to happen type deal. Like, he might have been like, me not seeing it doesn't make sense. Like, there's something going on, so this is special. I'm not gonna, like... I'm gonna let him keep. I'm gonna give him the hat. This is obviously important that he was the one the fruit chose or whatever.
Yeah, this is actually bringing up an interesting idea now that you mentioned, because you mentioned the canceling future sight thing, and I'm thinking to myself, how does it cancel it out? Like, how does it actually cancel it out? And then that makes me think of like how observation haki works in the first place. But like, this is a whole train of thought. But like, think about it like this. If he can cancel out your observation haki, let's say you try and use observation on him to read him, or to see slightly into the future to read him. If he can see further into the future than you, then it does get canceled. It's not like his ability has an express way of canceling out your haki. It's just that you can't see further than he can.
That makes sense.
So he can just whatever you're planning to do, he'll just be one step ahead at all times. So he just cancels out whatever observation you try and do on him. It won't work. And then
that makes sense.
That makes me think that what is observation haki? What exactly is observation haki? What is future sight? Is it possible that haki is just weaponized will, and that observation haki is the ability to see the will of someone else? You're able to see what their will is intending to do next. And this chapter kind of gives us a little insight, because right before Shanks did future sight on Kid, he read a whole fucking thing about what Kid's been doing his whole career and what type of guy he is. And after he read the whole fucking dossier, then he does the future sight, sees exactly what Kid's going to do, and then stops him. So it could be that observation is straight up reading, like literal soul read. You are reading their soul.
That.
Like
like
and
you
Shanks
said,
might be the best at that. And that's why Luffy surprised him, because Luffy's soul, or his will, is so powerful that he's the only one that basically beat Shanks's observation. Shanks actually could not foresee what his will was going to do. He did not see him,
I love that, especially like the tie where observation is you basically tapping into someone else's will. Like, that makes so much sense, because like armament is you powering yourself up, being stronger, whatever, but observation is literally you telling what the other person's doing, right? Like, and we think about inherited will also in the story, which is obviously one of the main plot lines of the whole story. And it's like inherited will, like will even gets carried person to person, like over time. And so of course it makes sense to me, at least, that you would be able to, like, someone could use haki to tap into that will as well. Like, if will can be inherited person to person, I can probably also, use my will to kind of not counter it, but like you're saying, like perceive what what that will is trying to do, right? Like, if my will is strong enough, like it's all the, because like I said, if Joy Boy's will can make it into Luffy somehow, because that clearly happened somehow, It's like why can't someone else tap into what that will is trying to do also, right? Like if it can get carried person to person, I should be able to use my hockey to sense it or whatever. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And
maybe that's what the Conquerors thing is too. Like when they're hitting each other without touching each other, it could be that their wills are directly like we can't see them. And maybe this is like an extra dimensional thing that Vegapunk would be better off explaining, but like maybe there's like a second body to everyone that has this kind of like physical presence that can interact with each other, and then when you lose that Conqueror's battle, it's like your physical will is like being direct. That's why, for example, an iron balloon like Big Mom or Kaido can't get damaged by basic attacks like armament and stuff, because you're just hurting their physical body. But maybe what Advanced Conquerors is doing when you hit them with these moves, you're straight up hitting their very being. Like you're straight up hitting the core of who they are, like their will.
Or
and that's
shout out to Parvision, their shadow potentially.
The shadow idea it actually applies very well here too. Now that you mention it, the shadow could be that. Second body sort of.
I still think in Thriller Bark, like how Luffy's shadow went into Oars and he couldn't stretch, but then the shadow was used to make him stretch. To me, that is still like. It screams future parallel to me. Like in the future, we're gonna see shadow. Like you can just make your shadow stretch. Like Luffy will lose his fruit, but learn how to control his shadow, like just by will or something, right? Something like that. So he keeps the powers. I
think we already got the parallel. We already got the parallel for that. The Oars is the Iron Giant, and the shadows is the dynamic power source.
That's interesting. Shadow being the power source.
Not that shadows are the dynamic power source, but they are a parallel to the dynamic power source. Oars is a giant corpse, but like basically a giant mech with he literally has a whole hull, like he has like a little cockpit built into his stomach where Moria sits and controls him like a mech. And how does Moria actually power Oars? How is Oars able to actually move around and do stuff? He uses the shadows to power his body, and those shadows obviously can stretch and bend and shapeshift. It wasn't I'm pretty sure it wasn't that Luffy's abilities allowed Oars to stretch. It's that Oars' shadow was stretched. So maybe the shadows are a parallel to that dynamic energy source, and let's say whatever it ends up being. For one example, I think it's dreams. Let's say dreams are the dynamic energy source. They might work in a similar way where you can like mold them like and shape them, and that can like affect things like, you know, what we're seeing with Luffy. Like that's why Luffy's stretchy in the same respect. So I think the Iron Giant is a parallel to Oars, and the shadows are definitely like an example of that sort of like weird wacky energy source that shouldn't work the way it does, but it does. You know,
man, you just sold me on an idea that I've had like looming in my head for a while about the energy source, and I'm like pretty sold now. So I've said for a while that like it could be tied to like Binks sake, but because it burns, right? That's the whole idea. Is it's going to be like a flame or something, right? So putting that to the side, the burning part, like to me, I think like the sun would be like a perfect energy source. Like even if you go back and earlier in Egghead, they have a conversation where it's like it's Frankie or someone's like talking to Lilith like, hey, what powers this island? They're like, you can consider it fire, like almost like a sun or something, but like I forget something like that, right? They talk about a sun,
powered by fire.
And so you're talking about shadows being a parallel for the energy source. Well, shadows are literally like the opposite of sunlight, right? Like they're the absence of sunlight. Right, it's like where sun doesn't go, and so we have the sun god now, and like the ancient kingdom, you know, obviously ties to Joy Boy and the sun god and all that, and the sun is a potential power source and all that. So it's making me think like we're talking about this power source. Shadows are one form of it, but like it's the reverse, where like the light that's coming down to make that shadow is an energy source. But that shadow itself is also energy because it's like the person's will, like it moves in accordance to the person's will. So it's like,
it could be.
So there's like, it's like sister sides to that. So shadows were like the Thriller Bark version, and then like the sun or sunlight or the core of the earth, which might be the sun or something crazy. That's the energy source.
I think that's an interesting idea, and that symbolically at least works, because the sun in One Piece is definitely like connected heavy to. In my opinion, it's connected heavily to dreams, and the idea of the ship of dreams having the sun symbolism, and then the fishmen looking up towards the sun, and then the sun pirates and all that. There's a lot of connections between those two, so it could be that like light and the sunlight is all connected to the idea of dreams, and then the shadows of Thriller Bark are connected to the inversion of that, nightmares, things like that, which and then that's how you get Nightmare Luffy. This is Parvision talked about all of this with like he talked about the Nightmare Luffy, and then he said that Gear 5th is like Daydream Luffy. So like yeah, that could be what's happening, where Thriller Bark is the inversion of that, where the dynamic power source we see in Thriller Bark is shadows. The whole thing is about like, you know, the shadows create Nightmare Luffy, and it's all about zombies and monsters, and there's no machines. It's just kind of like a Tim Burton thing, but the whole idea is just an inversion of what we're seeing now with Egghead, with the sun god, technology, you know, so on and so forth.
Dude,
so.
I love that, and man, it all fits together. It all fits together so well, because also, if you lose your shadow, the sun kills you. You know what I mean? So there's also like that parallel where like they're like they're one in the same, like, you know what I mean? Like they're both required in a way, you know what I'm saying? And so like nightmares and dreams, same idea. Like if you want dreams, you're gonna have nightmares too, right? Like that's just it's just how the game works. Like sometimes it's unfortunate, but you know, you open yourself up for that opportunity. So it's the same thing here. Like with shadows and sunlight, it's like, you know, if you do get the nightmare, like, you know, like obviously that's bad, but it's, you know, it's just like you need the sun to have the shadows, right? Or vice versa. Exactly. So that's amazing, man. I see a lot of people in the chat are bringing up Dyson Sphere theory. Shout out to Michael Evans for helping me with the steering wheel theory I did a long time ago. It's you know, it's like maybe the planet is just a big Dyson sphere, you know,
Dyson sphere.
Yeah, like there's a sun inside, and the Annie's lobby hole is an exhaust pipe. And that's why it's so sunny, because it says the sun shooting outside, like it's shooting through the bottom of the earth out, and so that's why it's sunny. So that's actually that's my opinion on Ennie's lobby, is that it's the core of the earth, like the sunlight from the center is pushing outward, and that's why. I don't know what the hole was made of or how, but
I mean, look, they did talk about an artificial sun, so if there's a way for the artificial sun, like if the artificial sun's going to be connected to anything, I think Ennie's lobby is definitely one of them for sure. Like I don't know how else we explain the giant hole. So like,
and the government has a base there.
Yeah, so it's like maybe that's maybe the interior of the One Piece world is kind of like a ring world, Dyson Sphere scenario. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that might be a future theory, because also one other part to that, because we were just talking about ores and his importance to all this, or like his potential, you know, because Luffy was in his body or whatever. What are ores? Like the noun ores?
Oh, like the to row a ship.
Yep, to make a ship move. And we have Ore as a giant guy, and we're talking about the planet maybe being like a Dyson sphere and like potentially like a terraformed spaceship of sorts, right? Because like they live, it's a spaceship, like we're floating in space and all that. And it's like, it's crazy that like, you know, like Ore is like, what if he's also the continent puller? It's like, so it's also like building on his lore and stuff. So like, what if he was responsible for making the planet move somehow? Like he was the ore of the ship, you know what I mean? Because now this leads to another idea where like the skull on Onigashima, what if that was like the original ores? Like you know, Moria got the wrong ores, right? Like the original one was that one, so he was huge, and then that leads to maybe he was responsible for steering the planet because he had maybe it was Joy Boy, like the original ores was Joy Boy. That's like a popular theory that I've heard around. Preach, I know, has a couple videos on it, but it's like if that was possible, then maybe he grew to like a massive size and just like, you know, could manipulate the planet, so it made him like the ores of the earth, like literally, and that's why his name was that. It's just like, it's too fitting of a name for me, like ores.
It creates some interesting ideas in my mind, just because I'm thinking about like Thriller Bark being an island that could move, you know,
right?
And like that makes me wonder about like, is Laugh-Tale a moving island? Like, yeah, it has coordinates, but maybe the coordinates aren't like the way that we think they work, and maybe there's something else that determines. Like maybe the coordinates for Laugh-Tale are not so much coordinates like on the map, like if you just have a map and you place X here, here, and here, but maybe they're based on like moving bodies in the sky, like different planets, and like you have to align like based on where the planets are at this certain time. That tells you where it is, and then that way that all the elements, including the coordinates, are constantly moving, and then the only way to actually find Laugh-Tale would be to use all four moving coordinates to actually pin. I don't know the math. I'm not like a big math guy, so I couldn't say how valid that is. But like the idea of like moving islands is cool. Another idea is like if the world maybe at some point in the past was free, like a much more free place than it is now, then why should the islands be constrained? to
Right.
that. Why should islands be stuck in one place? Maybe islands used to be moving all over the place. Maybe the world of One Piece was like a big, almost like a alphabet soup where all the islands would like move around and stuff like that, and maybe Laugh Tale's the only one that retained that behavior. Like there's a lot of ways you could go off this. Just the idea of like moving islands is so cool.
Yeah. Or even
maybe they were all
whales.
pirate ships. Maybe maybe most of the original islands were like originally like Thriller Bark type, like pirate ships. I don't know. You could go on the whole thing.
So like I think whales are a good example, but like obviously Zunisha also does this, right?
Yeah.
Zunisha. So I think there's like there are like animals. I think animals make the most sense. Just I mean it could be ships, right? It could be like actual not like inanimate, but. You know, I've said it a bunch of times before, but like I think animals, like it's going to be like I think the Ancient Kingdom is going to be the marriage of like nature and humanity and intelligence and all that, right? Like it's going to be like I mean, there's probably issues and stuff, but I think like that's why they excelled is like they weren't hateful, they weren't about all control. It was like they're working together, so like they were one with nature, so like the animals. So it's like, oh hey, we don't need to go build a crazy ship that can move an island. We can just go have this whale take a bite and we're good, you know. Then it's inside of them, right? It could be like they found creatures that, you know, it's like a marriage of nature and humanity, you know what I mean? So I love that because it could be the same thing, like they all just lived in different animals.
Maybe Zoe is only one of many giant animals that used to exist that civilizations were built around.
Yep.
And then when the world government came about, they cursed all these different animals in different ways. So Zoe was cursed to walk the world forever. Maybe there was a giant serpent that was cursed to become the Red Line. It could be maybe because like they said that the Lunarians lived on top of the Red Line, right? Well, if the Red Line is the serpent, well we've seen people live on top of the elephant, so maybe Lunarians didn't live on top of this giant wall, but they lived on top of a giant serpent. And that connects into all the other like serpent symbolism. Maybe maybe that was like frozen into the Red Line. Maybe you have like a giant has there not been like a reference to like the world turtle somewhere? I feel like there's like ways for all of these different like animals to kind of come into play. It's a little bit of a crazier idea. It's just like something that's coming to mind now is like because like, you know, like there's a lot of like weird islands with weird properties to them.
Yes.
That almost make me wonder. Pluton is beneath Wano. Well, what if what if that has a little bit more meaning to it than just it's like sleeping, like it's a creature that's sleeping beneath Wano. Maybe Wano is resting on top of the sleeping creature in the first place.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
That was a popular theory for a long time because Wano has like the different parts to it, so it kind of looks like a turtle's back almost, like the different sections. So it's like, oh, that's going to be a turtle because like it's going to rise up and like.
Yeah.
But now that we know how Wano is shaped, that seems like less likely because like those regions were made way after the fact and they're way on top and stuff. But either way, I like where you're going with it for sure. And I think and this perfect connection, in my opinion, if we go back to Gaimon. The whole thing with Gaimon, the chapter is literally titled, "You are a rare and precious animal," right? That's literally the title of it. And he stayed there with all of those random animals that he was befriended because those were his friends, right? And obviously, you know this. You had a Gaimon video as well, but I think Gaimon's pretty much a parallel for Joy Boy. Like he's gonna Afro's the One Piece. You know, that's why he's in treasure chest, all that stuff. And so we're talking about Joy Boy and like the Ancient Kingdom being friends with animals and maybe having ships of, you know, that are animals basically. That fits that parallel perfectly. Like Joy Boy was just friends with a bunch of animals like that. He was friends with humans and stuff too, I'm sure, but that was like, it was probably an example of like, it doesn't matter what kind of creature you are, you're friends with Joy Boy.
Yeah, right, because that's what Zoe was described as. It was described as like a friend of Joy Boy's. So like maybe there's that could go for like the whales too. Like there could be like there could be a whale, there could be an elephant, there could be a snake, there could be a turtle, there could be whatever. And
pig,
I feel like there could have been a whole kingdom, a whole kingdom of just creatures that were coexisting, and everyone kind of like lived in peace, and the world was built around all these like ancient mythical creatures and gods, and they all got, when the world government came about, maybe they all got cursed, and a bunch of them got turned into devil fruits, and some of them got turned into land masses, and it could be something like that. I don't know. I mean, this is like a really lot of assumptions on this idea, but it's just fun to build off the oars moving island idea, and like this a lot of, I mean, it's a lot of it's potential. All Oda, right? Like One Piece is like a series where Oda can make anything like that happen. So
exactly,
that's why it's fun.
Yeah, like, and that's why I love One Piece. You know, like he's done this a lot. Like I don't know, just whether it's animals or just like friendship or like, you know, getting along and all that's all like, I mean, it's like always like the feel good feeling at the end and everything, but like, oh, the way Oda does it is just, it's so meaningful, you know. Real quick, I want to get caught up on these super chats. I'm sorry I'm so far behind.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna fly through these, or at least, you know, as quick as we can. Mr. Bushido, €2 super chat from an hour ago. I'm sorry, bro. Luffy will take an L. Hawkins predicted it. I know we talked about this a little bit in the Discord. I think the month is up. Personally, I think like
yeah.
At least, like, I know he said month, and if you want to get really technical, maybe it's like 29 days, but I feel like the sentiment was the end of the Wano situation personally. But I do think Luffy could take an L, though. I like an L in terms of like getting split up or needing to split up because he's not strong enough to beat Saturn and Kizaru and everyone else. Maybe
wasn't the guy he was reading? Wasn't the guy he was reading himself? Wasn't that?
Oh yeah, it was. Or no. At the beginning of the arc, he said 19% chance, and then the 1% chance was him during the raid.
Okay,
but the very start, like when Zoro fought him.
Yeah.
Another one from Mr. Bushido. This one I like a lot. Whenever we were talking about like the end of One Piece, he was wondering, will One Piece get spin-offs? I want a Nolan mini story. I will literally pay my own money to have a Nolan mini story made in a movie, but I do think we'll get spin-offs when it's over. Spin-offs in a loose term. Like I don't want to say spin-off per se, but I think it'll be like the Ed War movie, the God Valley movie. Like I can see stuff like that, like backfilling, like once the story is over, so Oda doesn't have to like write it in manga. He's just direct, like helping guide the movie. What do you think?
My dream is just to get the House of the Dragons or like Knights of the Old Republic version for One Piece. So like for anyone out there that's like a Star Wars fan, you have the main movies, but then you had these games and books and all this that was called the Old Republic, and that was set however many thousands and thousands of years before the Star Wars movies. So all new characters, all new settings, all new factions and locations, just same universe. There's still lightsabers, there's still all the stuff you love from Star Wars, but it's like an older time. I want them to do that for One Piece. Yeah. I would love to see like the One Piece world, like a little spin-off. Doesn't have to be a long, big thing, but it could just be a little spin-off showing, let's say 500 years ago, the world of pirates 500 years ago, long before Roger ever found the One Piece. What was it like back then? And we follow some like rookie pirate, and then we see like what the Yonko were like back then, and we have all these brand new like I think that would be so fun as opposed to like doing a two-piece situation, because One Piece should end and then it should be, that's where it should end.
Yes.
I think if we do spin-offs, let's look to the past. Dude, and let's do spin-offs of past shit.
Yeah, I'll take a 3-hour movie on Roger's start as a pirate and how he got all of his crew members. I would do whatever it took to have that movie made. You know, and then
they'll make that.
And you could even go back and do like Big Mom. Like it's not that enticing, but or maybe do all the Yonko, like all the startings of like what it takes to be a Yonko movie, and it's like we get highlights of all the backfill of like what their journey was like how Kaido, you know, even met Jack and all these other people, because we haven't learned that yet. You know what I mean? It's just like how that crew was made. Like that's always one thing to me that I like, is I want to see how the crew was formed. Like what, because Luffy has like really dramatic, sometimes traumatic situations that get his crew members on board, right? Or it's sometimes like it's still dramatic, but it's fun, or at least more fun, I think, than some others. With like Brook, for example, where like he invited Brook the second he met him, and then later on Frankie found out about Laboon, and when Luffy's like, he's a musician, he has an afro, he knows Laboon, we're getting him. You know, so it's just like, you know, they're all very different, and I would love to see that for Roger. Because
I wonder which crewmates would have the I guess emotional resonance with us to set something like that up. Because like the Roger Pirates, it's like really Roger, Rayleigh, and then Scopper, and then besides them, I mean, we have like the one-off pirates, but like it's just Shanks and Buggy from like those are the Roger Pirates we all pretty much care about. And then I guess Odin, but we got Odin's whole story,
and
so it's like they need to develop a lot on like some of the other ones,
right?
A bunch of them we don't really know anything about with the Roger Pirates.
And we even saw Roger meet Rayleigh for the first time. We got to see that flashback, so it's like I mean,
we saw the inception of the crew. We just didn't see the build up,
right?
And The unfortunate part about that is I worry it would be a little bit boring because Roger's career was like, it took like, what was it, like 30 years
Right.
until he actually ultimately decided to get the One Piece. But like for the rest of those like 30 years or whatever, he was just fucking around, like, you know.
Like,
So-
I would love to see just because I agree, like it would be multiple time skips. You know what I mean? Like here's an event,
so
5
many.
years. Yeah. But like I'd love to see just how he got Big Mom's poneglyph. Like we just know he got it. They didn't fight, but he got it somehow. It's like just like, you know, like just whatever the key events are. You know what I mean? Like meeting crew members, getting the poneglyphs, maybe like show us some one-off conversations or like a training arc he had maybe with like a mentor that he found. Like I don't know who it would be, but like a Rayleigh type person, like maybe Rock's right hand that we haven't met yet or something.
Who would be Roger's mentor? That's a question I feel like we don't ask enough. Who was Roger's Shanks? You know,
Did he have one?
Did he have one? Did he just decide to do all this shit on his own, like completely without any outside influence?
I want that to be the case.
That's Giga Chad level if he did. Honestly.
Mad respect.
Yeah, right. Like
respect.
even Luffy had a whole dramatic chapter dedicated to giving him motivation, and Roger just like woke up one day and was just like, I think I'm just gonna go fuck shit up.
Yeah. Let me just flex my hockey. Like if I just try hard enough, I'll beat everybody. I would love that. And real quick, Mooglatons had a €2 super chat or £2, right? I get my pound. Blackbeard and world government can't be defeated in the same arc. Would waste both. I guess I could go back and forth. I see what you're saying. I definitely think if they are defeated in the same arc, we have to have it set up way before that happens. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it can't be like the final war starts and Blackbeard shows up and it's just like a 3-way fight. Like maybe, but that to me that's too much loosey-goosiness in my opinion. Like that's like we're not gonna. I don't know. I want to see like Luffy versus Blackbeard, Luffy versus Emu. If Blackbeard comes back some way and gets involved, that's fine. But I think I probably agree. If they get defeated completely in the same arc, that's one thing. But I do think like the main altercation between Luffy and Blackbeard and Luffy and World Government probably do need to be separate. Also because like Laugh Tale too. So yeah, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that the climax of each needs to happen separately. Although I can easily see them being tied together somehow. Like for example, having Blackbeard do his typical Blackbeard thing where like Luffy fights the world government, and then as soon as he's done taking them down, Blackbeard sweeps in last second and then is like, oh nope, I'm the king now, this is my throne, and then Luffy's worn out from the fight already, so he can't do much.
I have so many ideas on that, but I'm like, bro, we're gonna talk for hours and I gotta keep going. But I love that. I just like if Luffy were to beat Emu or even like beat everybody but Emu, maybe like he beat not even beat Akainu, but whatever, gets into position where it seems like he's gonna win or something, and then Blackbeard and Emu get involved in like maybe separate ways or something, that would be really good. Because then the world government's almost over with. It's like Emu is obviously the world government, but it's like people don't even know Emu exists, so it's like get rid of the world government part first or tackle that, get that kind of tackled, and then I like that. I probably agree with you, Moog.
He's waiting for his enemies to take each other out, then he can just snatch the title.
That's why I love Blackbeard, man. That's my guy.
Legend.
Absolute legend. Young Usopp super chatted $2 and said, now that Kaido died in Wano, died in quotes, is he awakened now? I say yes. I 100% am with that. I guess, we don't know for sure if zones need to die first. Like that seems to be maybe an implication, but we don't actually know that for sure. But whether it's that or they just got to get beat close to death, whatever it is, I do think this is probably one of the first times that Kaido's gotten beat this close to death since he got his fruit, which was right after God Valley, so Rox wasn't around to beat his ass anymore, if that was what was happening. So I can see that where now this enabled it, because I don't think he awakened for sure. I'd be surprised if that was the case and Oda didn't say it. So I'm with you. I think that's what happened, young Usopp. He died, quote unquote, but then somewhere, I don't know where he is, but maybe he became like one with the lava. Like his awakening is almost like like he covered himself in lava before, maybe like literally becomes it, and he's like traversing down below right now. Like he's like, oh, I finally found Pluton, I don't care, I don't need to go back up there now, this is what I wanted. So
have I told you my idea on that deck? I feel like I have.
I'm not sure.
I've been saying this a bunch. I think Kaido and Big Mom aren't dead, but Luffy, in typical Luffy fashion, like when he beat them and knocked them into the lava, or well, when you knock Kaido into the lava.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kaido's gonna come out of the lava somehow, but he's gonna be like a shriveled raisin.
Ooh.
Because like the lava will have shrunk him down, so he's gonna be like a Bakin situation where he's just like a little shriveled shit.
That's
and,
a
like,
fire take,
and
dude.
then he's not dead, but he's not a threat either. And then like it's like Luffy, because you know like how Luffy when he beat Buggy, he like Buggy was like turned like into just his arms and feet, and then Luffy blasted him away. And like Luffy's, you know, he's a cartoon man, so he like turns people into these cartoonish caricatures when he defeats them. Instead of killing them, he just embarrasses them really hard.
Like he bent Arlong's nose.
Yeah, he bent Arlong's nose, like things like that. Like
Yep.
like maybe that's what happened. Like Kaido got smacked into the lava. He puts the whole imprint in the floor with the dragon, and then we find out he comes back later, but he's like really tiny, and he's like a Pika. His voice is like Pika. He's like a really high pitched voice. Like, I'm gonna beat you. And like,
bro, that would be so funny. I will
he
say,
turns into a dragon, and he becomes the original baby Momo dragon instead of the big one.
Oh, bro.
And it's the inverse of Momo, and then Momo's the big dragon, and Kaido's the small dragon now.
Dude, I could already see the thumbnail now where you have Momo in giant dragon form looking real badass, and he's just like looking menacingly at the tiny Kaido, and Kaido's like, I don't know if I sent you it, but I have a thumbnail coming soon that Lee J made, and he did this himself where he has Kaido holding up a help sign, like looking really worried.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah, so like I've been holding on to this. Like, I've been saying this idea whenever I found the opportunity to, but that's been my headcanon. Like I don't think they're dead. I think they're gonna come back, and I think they're gonna be turned into little joke like Tic Tacs. You know,
and it's funny
like
because I think Big Mom could fix herself maybe by like eating more souls or something. You know what I mean? Like so she, but Kaido be stuck. That would that would be really fitting, just because like Kaido, his arc is done, right? Like he maybe he can come back and tell us some important lore and stuff, but like the Wano arc is done, like we're over. But like, you know, Big Mom like still has all of Whole Cake and like a huge army and all that kind of stuff, right? Like it's not like her island got taken over, like she still has all that. Obviously like the Mother Carmel giant connection stuff, like with the giant that saw her eat the kids, like we need to figure that out. So it's like I could see that where Big Mom comes back and she actually replenishes herself, but not Kaido. I like that.
Yeah, and I could see like it could be like a cover story where the cover story starts where you see like Kaido's hand like pulling himself out of the hole or like in the ground, and then it's like, oh shit, Kaido's coming back in the cover story, and then the next cover story he pulls himself up and he's like really shrunk down, and it's like you could see like a panel where like Momo's like standing over him like this. Like Kaido, like I could see like who's the big dragon now. It's like maybe Momo picks him up, he's like, really, you're Kaido, king of the beasts, and does like an inversion of like what Kaido did to him. Really, you're Odin's son, and he's like, really, you're Kaido, and he like lifts him up by like, yeah, I could see that being how Luffy got his, like that's the payoff for the Luffy Kaido fight, is that I could see that being it.
That would be so good. Now I will say I think it would be cool if Kaido awakened, he went back to normal and was strong, but it's like the awakening takes so much energy that he's like, I can't do, like he would lose every fight, you know what I mean? Like because he would get tired out or whatever. Like I don't know. Like I just think that'd be cool if he had some way to come back, but he's like, all right, if I awaken, I'm probably gonna kill myself doing it, but I could be strong if I wanted to. So it's kind of like a funny thing where it's like he's like a ticking time bomb, you know what I mean? Like that would be kind of funny, I feel like. But I love the Momo connection, and I also love the idea that maybe if Kaido came back, Momo would like be kind to him. Like, I mean, he would probably lock him up and stuff, but wouldn't like kill him or, you know, whatever. Like he would probably treat him with some baseline level of human respect, probably, and it would be like such a shock for Kaido. Like, bro, like I enslaved all these dudes, and he's not gonna kill me. Like I killed his dad.
I would honestly rather him have Kaido do the fucking Odin dance outside the capital for everyone.
That too. That'd be great too.
I'd rather have him do the Odin dance. I want that.
I just don't want him to kill him. That's the main thing. Like I don't want him to be like, you know, you've done enough. And that's where this idea came from, because the whole thing was like twofold. It's like, number one, Luffy doesn't kill people. And the good guys in this story, like we've learned the lesson of like valuing life, and that's like the opposite, the antithesis of Kaido is to value life. And they wouldn't kill him. Like that would be against the moral of the story. And then on top of that, Kaido's dream is that death, like his whole thing is like death completes a person. So you're telling me if Kaido, like if Kaido died fighting Joy Boy, that's his entire goal. Like his whole character was about finding and meeting Joy Boy, the guy who defeats him. His whole thing is about death completes a person. So if Luffy did actually kill him here,
Kaido got what he wanted.
True.
He actually won. He won because he got exactly. He's been trying to off himself for a while now and failed. He's been looking for Joy Boy, and if he did die here, that means that Luffy accomplished all of his goals for him.
Yep.
So the alternative, I feel like, is that no, he wasn't killed, and that he didn't get his dream, but he also doesn't get to be strong. He doesn't get anything that he wants, and he just gets embarrassed as a result of being a little doucher.
Dude,
yeah.
I just had the craziest thought. Oh, like, this is so crazy. So, okay, so yes, like that, like all that's true, and I think Kaido, like him coming back weak, I think could also be a parallel maybe to Yasuie. And the reason I say this is because you know, like he used to be one of the daimyo, really strong and whatever, but then like whatever happened over the last 20 years and he was shriveled up, and then he got like a grand death, right? Like he was on the cameras and all that, everyone got to see it was amazing, whatever. Well, that's what Kaido wants, is a grand death. Like he does want to die, but he also said like Whitebeard did it right, you know, he went out the right way. Like that's like how that's how a man does it, is like the vibe I got at least from it. And so like what if he like he did die, but like, you know, awakened or whatever, so he got to survive or whatever and came back and he is shriveled. But then what if he ends up having like a Yasuie connection thing, where not that he's like a super kind person, like, you know, giving stuff out, but it's like he dies in a similar way where he's like, all right, like I'm a scrawny whatever, you know, I'm not powerful anymore, so I can't have a grand death, but maybe I can do something else that gets me that death that I want, you know what I mean? So it's like he's maybe like now that he's weak, he can now get that death that he actually wants. Like it's like ironic, like he was so strong and he wanted to have a climactic death, but the death he got was anticlimactic, and then but he came back to life, and now he gets the climactic one now that he's not that strong, you know what I mean? So like it's kind of a similar thing. So
what if the Yasuie inversion is the Odin dance thing, except all the smile users are laughing at him while he does it?
Oh, like so, bro, like
so
what if people are actually laughing at him?
But they're actually laughing. It's not them crying and laughing. It's like they're actually laughing at him.
But
and it's all the smile users laughing at Kaido.
Dude, but what
I can see that.
I can see that. And what if it ends up being where like that happens and like Luffy like isn't cool with that, you know? He's like, hey, like even though he's an ass, like he's the worst person ever or whatever, it's like, you know, someone's dying, like don't laugh at like the passing of somebody or something. That would be, I think that would just be so deep where Kaido's like, man, you're really something, you know, like.
Oh no! In this situation, I would think he's not dying. I think he's just getting publicly humiliated. I think it's just him getting. I think it's him getting his just desserts.
Okay, yeah. If it's if it's just humiliate, like not the actual like execution layer, then
I don't think humiliation on top of the that would be overkill. That would make Momo look like an evil dude.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I want Momo to do something where it's like Kaido got his real just desserts. Like dying is like too easy for Kaido, you know.
If it was just like Kaido was like a weak little shit now, and then they made him like do like a little public dance like to make fun of him, and then all the smile users laughed at Kaido, and that was his grand finish, was becoming a joke. I think that would be a good way of getting back at him without doing it in the villain type of way where it's just like, oh, let's just execute him. Like I think that's like the easy cruel answer, but the more creative Oda-esque Luffy answer is to make it a joke, is to make it funny, is to make it, you know.
I love that.
Break their spirits, not who they are. Like don't break them, break their spirits. Yeah, in that way.
That's so beautiful, dude. Like I can if there is like if I could pick a way for him to come back, that's probably what I want. Because if he comes back in full force, that's like, it's
a problem.
Like, what are we?
What do you,
like, he's still great.
What do you do about that?
And he might be awakened now. It's like, oh shit. Yeah, so I like that a lot.
Yeah, we're talking about resolving the story in however many chapters. Like, if Kaido comes back, that's an extra issue to like resolve.
Exactly.
You know?
And so, and it is funny because like also, you know, like King thought he was Joy Boy and all this kind of stuff. So I think it would just be really cool if there was like some final, like he comes back, but he's weak or whatever, but he has some final moment of redemption that's like, wow, he kind of was like Joy Boy a little bit, you know, like at the very end, like he died saving some, like, or continuing the world, and I don't know exactly what it is, but like you said, like him coming back as a weakling makes things a lot easier, I feel like.
In his past, I mean, you could even argue that he did kind of have some Joy Boy, like the aspect of freeing King in the first place. Like if Joy Boy is a liberator, that's why King even made the mistake.
Exactly.
Of, like, you know, so like, yeah, Kaido did have some of those elements. He did. It's just, it was marred by everything else.
Yeah, I would love that. Okay, I'm gonna get through a couple more super chats here.
Do your thing.
Matt Cypher had 10 bits and said the red serpent could be Jormungandr the giant. Are you saying like an actual giant, like not like a snake, but an actual person giant, or like a
like a Jormungandr is not a snake; it's a person.
That's what I'm.
like
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering. If let me know, Matt Cypher. Type in the chat if you're still here. I'll try to catch it. Actually, I'm only getting Twitch chats on my Streamlabs anyway, so I can see the YouTube too on the other side. But Saran Rap used 100 bits and said, could those animals like Zunisha have been the Titans before the Greek Roman gods coming, like in Greek mythology? I really like that because like the ancient weapons, you know, have names, you know, tying to the Roman or Greek gods or whatever. And they at least one that we've seen so far as an animal. Obviously, I have the Pluton as a mole theory as well. And you know, we just talked earlier that Uranus, whatever that is, might be living on top of the tree because it's like a flying creature of some kind. So having Zunisha and these other animals be like titans of the world, like the creatures that were around before the ancient weapons, and it's almost like the ancient weapons today aren't even as crazy as what the animals were like back in the day. I like that a lot, honestly. Like it could be a parallel where they're like the precursor to the ancient weapons because they were even crazier, or like they were all just like that. Like they were all big, huge animals.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea.
I like that. I like that a lot, Saran Wrap. Michael Evans super chatted $5. Is it too soon to talk about the eternal flame being an ever burning sake? It is not. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think you were here, but it's not too early to talk about that. I would love, like I said, like the Dyson Sphere, a sun could be in the middle, or like exhaust pipe shooting out or whatever. But I would love if it's all just burning sake, like it's a giant ball of burning sake, and it's like obviously there'd be a lot of explanation and like will and fruit awakening probably, you know, stuff. But I just think that would be like, you know, Binks sake is like the eternal song to carry on, you know, because Binks trying to deliver that sake to somebody, and like they're keeping that alive, and it's like, what that whole message might be like, if we don't remember that song, like what if, you know, terrible stuff happens, like, you know, like, because if you need to remember the, like, nobody dies until they're forgotten type thing. So like by the, you know, the song existing, the sake never runs out type of deal.
I do like that idea. I like the idea of like people singing the song, or people believing in the dream, keeping the dream alive or making it real. I love that whole cyclical sort of like feedback loop with dreams and stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, I thought you might like the dream connection because that's it, right? Like Binks. So I think I asked you about this. Like Binks and Shanks both end in kusu, like the same kanji, and so it's like, they both end in the same. And again, I mean, a lot of people have names that end like that, but it's like or end the same way. But it could be like Shanks is the modern Binks, where like Binks is delivering that sake, and it's like Shanks is doing the same thing by like delivering Joy Boy back to the sake. Like if it's like Laugh Tale has that, like, not saying that the One Piece is the sake, but I'm just saying like that obviously that all connects somewhere. And it's like, what if Shanks is delivering Joy Boy to Binks's brew, right? Like that's the connection. Like Binks might have been what to Joy Boy what Shanks is to Luffy, but maybe reverse, where like, you know, like Joy Boy died, and so Binks carried on that will, like the will of like the sake, whatever. Maybe they're on the same crew. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like now that carries forward where Shanks is like carrying that torch in some way because like their names end in the same thing. I'm not exactly sure how it all ties, but it's like
I do like the name pattern stuff with Shanks too. I think that's an interesting idea. Like the Shanks, like the Bink Shanks thing, like the Binks Shanks thing, like is a really interesting idea. And that's also why I like the Rocks theory too, because like these names would just have like a really weird end to them that I feel like to some degree might have something to it.
And I saw Monkey D. Luffy in the chat just said Binks and Mink. We also have the Minks, which Zunisha's back there. It's like what are with the ending in the K sound, like ku, like ku or kusu, like what is with that constantly, right, with all these connections. So I don't know. I think there might be something there. Matt Cypher used 10 bits and said, it might be easier to make a movie than a game. Coding devil fruits in game might be difficult at the very least. At least a pure hockey-based game might be more feasible. I have wanted a One Piece MMO with devil fruits, like RuneScape, but with devil fruits for my entire life.
Yeah.
And it would be really hard because I think there's like so many layers. Like, are you going to give two people the same fruit? You know what I mean? Are you going to make you like kill a person to take their fruit? So it's like a constant people are getting new power. Like it would be very hard, I feel like, to make it like fair.
Yeah,
but I'd love it.
If I had, I know the One Piece MMO is like a really, like, that's obviously, like, in a perfect world we'd have a One Piece MMO with all the cool, like, you could make your own crew, you make your own ship, you make your own Jolly Roger, you get your own devil fruits, you know, yada yada.
Yep.
Like, that's the dream game.
Yeah.
If I had to pick though, like, not an MMO, any of you out there, if you guys have played Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord or Warband, the first one, those games, those are like strategy almost, like real-time fights. I could see like some sort of like One Piece, managing your own pirate crew, building the crew up from scratch, and like charting your course along the map and stopping from, like, I could see like some really cool yeah, I would love that.
It could even be stuff where like you have to allocate resources intelligently to make it to the end of the journey, where like maybe there is like combat and skill based stuff, but it's also strategy where like, all right, you have a 3-day trip and you only have this much money, like you need food, you know, you're gonna die, like, your journey ends if you starve out at sea. Like it could just be like little things like that. Like that would be dope too. That'd be great.
I want that like extra layer of like I want to actually strategize my journey through the Grand Line. Like I want a game where they actually put you in the Grand Line, and it's the game actually makes the Grand Line reflect how fucking serious it is.
Yes,
like,
dude,
and like you have to actually plan and like think about shit and like you know, like
a storm comes in and it's like, hey, storm, you gotta fix the ship, and it's like there's literally like timers, like you gotta like pull this rope and do this to the sails and dump out and like pour out buckets of water from the basement. Like we talked about RuneScape earlier. If you ever played fishing trawler on RuneScape, it's like that kind of thing where basically the ship is sinking, you gotta pour buckets out, you get like something's attacking the ship, you gotta fight off the sea creature. It's like that type of thing. So
gotta go to the GE and buy a straw hat for 13 bill.
Yeah, bro. I bought I went to the, what's it called, the teeth farm in that game, and I got the farmer straw hat just because I wanted it to store my thing. Yeah, it's also for a clue scroll. But also Saran Wrap, I see you said you love RuneScape down in the chat. Do you play RuneScape? It's I'm talking about OSRS. If anybody else does in the chat, let me know. My Ultimate Iron Man just beat Tombs of Amasket last night, and I was really pumped.
No one in here better be a RuneScape 3 player.
Oh yeah, hey.
I'm not about that.
If you're a RuneScape 3 player and you're not super chatting, I don't know what's going on, because if you get to play that game, you need to have boatloads of money. So to be competitive at least. So
that game is trash.
I
love OSRS. So
same. I love my RuneScape 3 account because I made it when it was an OSRS, and I just kept playing it even when all that stuff happened. So it kind of hurts me to like see it end, but I know I have like multiple.
I have my account, my RS3 account, like because I had my original RuneScape account that when they did the upgrade, it got. I don't know what happened to that account though. I have so much shit on there probably still. Back in the day, that was like when I was in middle school. I was botting back then.
Oh really? Oh bro.
That account is probably like that has a bunch of shit on it that I shouldn't have on it.
Dude, actually, in that's a really good.
Look at middle school,
dude.
my classmate, I shared. We made a bot account and we shared the password, and he stole the password and the bot account at some point. Sorry, this is a whole other story. Anyway,
no. It's a perfect segue. First, I want to answer these. I got two more whatever you want to call them, chats or whatever, and then that's actually a really good segue because you're talking about bots, and I was saying like bots run the economy in RuneScape, and in Egghead. We're finding that they're making bots, the Seraphim bots, right? That's what the government's basically getting bots, right, to help them out.
That's true.
So I'm going to read these couple super chats, but then I want to get into that because I think that's going to tie into Blackbeard, which I think we have to talk about at some point. So just give me 1 second. Nat Cypher used 10 bits and said, "Do you think Luffy will bring freedom to Egghead, bringing the dreams to reality of the thoughts in Egghead?" We're about to talk about that, so I'm gonna table that for a second because Luffy crazy stuff's about to go down at Egghead, and I think loosely that is going to be part of it. And you also said, I think you're onto something with Binks and Shanks because I think someone was delivering sake to Binks and Luffy is delivering a straw hat to Shanks. I love that. And also Shanks brought sake to Whitebeard, right? And he's like, hey, my hometown has the best sake. Oh, why is that, bro? Is it Binks sake? Is that what you have? Is that what the drink you gave Whitebeard and didn't tell him? So the Sake and Shanks connections, and also Shanks's entire crew is based off like liquids, like drinks, but Lucky Roo is like not a drink, but you could drink it, but I wouldn't recommend it. But so it's like based off drinks. So there's another thing where Shanks himself could be based off a drink, and we just don't know it yet. Like sake.
What's Beckman?
That one I haven't found anything. I did find like a vinery, like a wine brand called Beckman, but it doesn't seem to be a major one, so I doubt that's it. So I'm still looking for an answer there. That's the one I don't know, but there's like lime juice, bonk punch, Rue, like I just mentioned, is like literally whatever. Yasop is known as Chaser, which you probably know about chasers.
Okay.
So there's a lot of potential there, right?
Interesting.
It's interesting. But now I want to get into the Blackbeard stuff, and I guess I'll give a heads up to everyone. We're probably going to end the stream in like 20 minutes or so, and we're probably going to be talking about Blackbeard for pretty much the rest of the time. So if you have any Blackbeard questions, now's the time to super chat, and if not, we're going to end it probably like 4:45ish, 4:50. But I want to talk about Blackbeard because obviously he's heading to Egghead, and that's, I mean, to me, like as crazy as the chapter was, I think that might have been my most hype moment, because I freaking love Blackbeard. And the second I saw that ship, I even said in the stream, like, even if this is the end and we go to a different section, I'm just basking in it. Like, Blackbeard is getting involved. Like, this is everything I could ask for. So what do you think Blackbeard, or I guess first off, do you think Blackbeard is actually on that ship? And second off, even if he's not, what's the goal for the crew going to Egghead?
Okay, so good 2 questions. These are questions I was asking myself prior to the stream. If it's not Blackbeard, okay, so I think both of these answers are related to the same character.
Okay.
But it can go both ways. If it's not Blackbeard, or hold on, I guess I'll answer the first question, or second question first. If it is Blackbeard pulling up to the island, why do I think they're pulling up to Egghead? I think it's because the 10th Titanic captain is on Egghead right now.
And who's the 10th Titanic captain?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But if it's not not Blackbeard on that ship, then it's the 10th Titanic captain. So I think either way, either the 10th Titanic captain's pulling up right now in their own ship, or, and that's what we're gonna get this crazy reveal, or they're on Egghead right now and Blackbeard's scooping them.
Okay.
That's what
so
I think it's one of those 2 situations.
Okay, so you don't think like they're going for the Stella or anything like that?
I mean, of course he could be. Right. I just don't know how much he knows, and I just have to assuming he doesn't know anything about what's happening inside Egghead Island right now, and he just pulled up here based on his own plans that are going on. Because Egghead's very isolated, right? It's closed off to the outside, so. And also, no CP agents have been able to make it out or report anything on Egghead. So, the news about this island has been under wraps for a very long time. No one outside of Egghead knows what's going on inside Egghead. So, Blackbeard, if he's pulling up, has to have a reason that's not directly related to what's happening with us on Egghead right now.
Okay.
So, if that's the case, then my thought process is someone from Blackbeard's crew might already be here doing something. And now, if that's the case, then the 10th Titanic captain could be this person, because all the characters we've seen on Egghead, none of them, as far as we know, are on the Blackbeard Pirates.
Right.
But that 10th captain is the question mark. So any of them could be at the same time.
I love that you're bringing up the 10th Titanic captain, because I always like shield myself from getting hyped about that, because like it's one of those things where for me, like, Oda's gonna do it when he does it, and it's like because I have, like, again, everyone has their own thoughts on it, but I feel like the 10th Titanic captain is gonna really, really surprise us. Like, I don't think it's gonna be it's probably someone we met, but I think it's gonna be like really like how did this even happen? And my favorite option, without question, is Gaimon. That has been my favorite for a long time, and I know that's super questionable, and there's not like a lot of reason for it, but that's what I've been hoping for. So I'm just glad you're bringing it up. Not that Gaimon is there or makes any sense.
That's a sick idea, though.
But it would also give Sanji a perfect fight for the.
Oh
Blackbeard.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yep, because they didn't even finish the fight before, and Gaimon was like beating him whenever they fought. Like, Gaimon was balling out with the. What are those things called? The things with the balls on the end. Those that weapon. There's a name for it.
Tonfas.
Tonfas. Thank you. It's Tonfas. Yes. Like, I'm not even like a big Tonfa guy or anything. I don't even care. But him cool, using them. I was like, bro, these are the coolest weapons I've ever seen. Like, it fits them so well. So, but I want to say though that as far as Blackbeard showing up, I don't think it's actually going to be Teach who shows up, and the only reason I say that is because, you know, Oda can always mess with his timing a little bit, but it seemed like, you know, when we got to Egghead was when Blackbeard was fighting Law, and like how long has passed since then? Like a couple hours maybe. And so I'm just like, could Blackbeard really have beaten Law, got everyone on the ship and left, and then got right outside of Egghead that quickly? It's, you know, Oda, I mean, Augur has the warp fruit, so it's like he can do whatever he wants maybe, for all we know. But that alone makes me question, like, did Law really get fodderized that quick, and then he just got packed up and they brought him, you know, everyone's coming here already? And also on top of that, Garp's going to Hachinosu. So in my head, it's like, this is probably like half the pirates, and then half the Blackbeard pirates are probably at Hachinosu because of Garp. Or, you know,
yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah, so for me, and it, like, if Garp goes to Hachinosu and Blackbeard isn't there, you know, that would be disappointing. You know, in my mind, like seeing Garp fight against other Blackbeard pirates and not Teach, you know, that'd be like kind of weird. So for me, that's so, but it doesn't really matter that much, because it's like this, you know, they're coming here for a reason, right? Like there's like a plan. So you talked about someone being on the island. What do you think about Lafitte? I know my my chat was bringing that up a lot, or, you know, Hot D Tori, you know, Hattori the bird.
About Hattori being Lafitte.
Yeah, like
I think that's an interesting idea. The question I would have then is, how does this pigeon work its way into Cypherpool as Rob Lucci's pet? And there's just no suspicion at any point. Like, this is the highest intelligence agency in the world, and they're getting fooled by a dude that can turn into a pigeon. Like, for me,
yeah,
it's tough. He's had this pigeon the whole time. I thought originally it was part of his disguise, and then it's no, he's had it as a CP agent. He even had it on his shoulder. So like, how long has Lafitte just been chilling with him, and then like no one's questioned like where this bird came from? Like, you know.
Here is like, I agree that was like always my hold up with it.
Yeah.
But, and I actually didn't realize this till I was doing my Frankie video. But you know, whenever we first met the Blackbeard pirates, Lafitte was a part of the crew, but he wasn't with them. They even said, like when they were on Jaya, on Jaya, they said, we're here to meet up with Lafitte, right? Like, he wasn't with them. Like, he's never with them, is like the feeling it gives, right? And he obviously got into Mariejois, you know what I mean? And like was like, hey, you should make Teach a warlord. Like, what? Like, how does that happen, right? So like, to me, like that, those two things alone are like, okay, he's obviously really freaking good at espionage because he got into Mariejois, right? He got into, was it Pangea Castle or whatever base, whatever it was, right? They're at the round table with all the other warlords and important people. It's like, how did he do that, right? So that alone, and then the fact he's never with them is like, okay, maybe he's always Hattori. He just stops every once in a while. And I actually remember you brought this up a couple weeks ago, and I was like literally typing it, and then you said it, and I never mentioned it like in the chat. But whenever like the traitor was almost revealed before we knew who it was, you brought up like, well, if we're gonna think about a traitor, we should look at like the past traitor situation, which was Kanjuro. And we saw whenever Kanjuro landed after the time jump, he like sent out some birds, right? And that was like a giveaway that like, what's he doing that for? Like, he's communicating. And I was thinking the other day, like, well, those are like, we saw birds were like the key to get like sending in secret info back then. You know what I mean? Like, he drew some birds, and so now we have another little bird that's been on, you know, on Lucci's shoulder, and we also know Lafitte has a bird fruit because we saw him with like wings in the one panel. So for me, I'm like, yeah, it's not impossible, you know, like it's like scarily possible.
Pigeons are messenger birds. They're carrier. They're messenger birds. Pigeons are messenger birds. Hattori is a pigeon. So if pigeon is a messenger bird, if Hattori's a messenger bird, maybe Lafitte's been carrying messages around and speaking in people's ears, and that could.
I can't believe I never made that connection, man. The fact that Hattori's a pigeon and pigeons are messenger birds, bro. My mind.
Well, I mean, Hattori. The name is Hattori, right? But it looks almost like a white dove. But like the name is Hattori, and Hato is pigeon, so it's like a pun. Like the name is a pun, so I'm assuming it's a pigeon, right?
I'm almost positive it's a pigeon.
Yeah, Hattori is a white pigeon. Yep, so it is a pigeon.
Oh, bro, my man. for some reason, whenever you brought up pigeons or messenger birds, I don't know if you used to watch Hey Arnold, but that just jumped to my head. There's a pigeon episode. Yes. That is one of that episode sticks in my mind almost as much as Stoop Kid, but Stoop Kid's legendary. But
Stoop Kid's a good one. Yeah.
But dude, that is like, that's one of those like little bits of info that really sells me. Like, for like, it shouldn't, but it does. Like that. Oh man.
It is a very nice connecting detail. I could definitely see that being the way it ties together. And if Lafitte's been on Egghead this entire time, then that would also explain how any of the Blackbeard pirates know what's going on there right now, so that they would pull up at this timing, right?
And he would even know, like, hey, CP0's heading out to Egghead. You know, like he knew the second they left, right? So he's known for a minute. Damn, bro.
That's why I feel like there's a good chance.
And the hat.
The hat too. The hat's an interesting one, because if we want to go with birds and hats, another bird with a hat that comes to mind is Morgan's. And part of me also, like, I know that this is a lot harder to prove, but part of me wonders how much Lafitte like knows, and whether or not Morgan's and Lafitte could be the same, and that Lafitte this entire time has been taking on this public persona of Big News Morgan's, shifting the news and the public in like a certain way, and then basically writing the history so that it lines up with Blackbeard's plans. So like everything with like Ace in Marineford, with like Ace on the execution, and then Luffy reads that newspaper and then goes to Marineford and everything, that's like set off by the newspaper. So it could be like Lafitte doing this sort of like manipulation tactic through the news to help serve Blackbeard's goals. That could be another thing too. So like, and that's even scarier if you think about it, because if we think about who's with Big News Morgan's right now,
right? Vivi, Wobble,
yeah. So like you know, it's I like the idea. I have a lot of questions if it turns out to be Hattori. But that being said, I mean, I could see it working, and I wouldn't be upset if that ended up being the big twist. I still want to know who the 10th captain... Like, I don't know why the 10th captain is being kept under such wraps, and I feel like we have to learn that soon.
And like, at this point, if the 10th captain ends up being, like, Aokiji, I'm gonna be like, bro, Oda, what are we doing, man? Like, we just say it.
Yeah, just say it, bro. Like, at that point...
You're hyping us up for no reason, you know? Like, that's not cool. So I definitely don't think it will be Aokiji, but it's just, if it is someone like that, I'll be pissed.
I will be pissed too. I'll be like, man, like, you know, you could just say it. And then also, I will say that they've kind of like pushed us away from that idea, because haven't the other crew members shown like a distrust towards Aokiji? So like, it's clear that they don't seem to. I'm pretty sure there was like one panel or something where they were talking.
I think you are right. There was like one little like side comment, like, I can't remember exactly.
Them clearly, yeah. So like, it might be where he's working with them, but not like with them, you know.
And real quick, shout out to Tazmorn CP in the chat, and Monkey D Luffy. I saw you said it right afterward, but about Hattori. So you said like Hato is pigeon or something like that, right? I don't know if that. Maybe I'm butchering it, but
yeah, no, that's correct.
But so it's Hato, but also it's Hattori as in Hattori, hat bird. Right?
Oh shit! Yeah.
and Lafitte wears a top hat, right? Doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
So it's literally pigeon and hat bird. That's crazy. And by the way, it's just because we're talking about Lafitte so much, I just want everyone to know. Just like a lot of pirates in One Piece, Lafitte is based off of a real life pirate, and he actually, like, the oldest bar in New Orleans is named after Lafitte. It's literally named Lafitte's, and I was there a year and 2 weeks ago. So I just want to mention, I got the memory thing on my phone the other day, so I was thinking about it.
Interesting enough. I'm pretty sure there were, if I'm remembering correctly, there were 2 Lafittes, and so this might actually help the idea. There were actually 2.
Jean Lafitte's the main one. I know that's the one that is based like the place.
I believe it's like Jean and Pierre. Or is it? Am I not mistaken? Is it?
I'm looking.
There's 2 of them. So like the idea that maybe Lafitte.
There's 2. You're right. Pierre and Jean, or Jean, or however you want to say it.
Yeah, and I think that the funny thing is that if there's 2 Lafittes in the real world, it could be that we have 2 Lafittes in One Piece, where he's playing 2 different people. He's pretending to be 2, like, that could be.
That's crazy. There
you go.
Oh my god, that's
there you go.
That is a spicy meatball right there, my friend. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
That's crazy, dude. Wow. Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, that's probably what I would say, is that Lafitte has been calling in info to Blackbeard and he's just been keeping him up to date. Like, I don't know how, like, Hattori maybe just flies away for a second and comes back. But like you said, my biggest issue is that Lucci hasn't made this connection yet. Unless Lucci is the 10th Titanic captain, which would be like the craziest thing ever, and he's been in cahoots with Blackbeard from day one, which would be like the absolute craziest twist of all time. That would be an Oda level twist. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm just saying that would be freaking crazy if that was
imagine if it turned out that Rob Lucci was working with Lafitte this whole time as the Bird, and Rob Lucci not only was Stussy a triple agent, but even since the beginning of the fucking story, Rob Lucci was a triple agent. That would be wild. I don't even know how much I'd like that. I have to take it would be so crazy. I'd need like a solid day to just digest the information.
Dude, I would literally have to like get in a call with you and Par and just be like, guys, like, tell me how to feel. Like that would be shocking. Like that would definitely be like a very unexpected, you think, because like we just saw Stussy do the opposite, right? Or Stussy, I don't know. People, no matter how I pronounce it, people make fun of me. So,
Stussy.
but it would, like, we just had that happen. It would be so crazy if Lucci's like, well, guess what, guys? Like, remember back in Water 7 when I was like pretended to be a traitor with them, and now here, like, you know, we just had her do it. Well, you know, like, here's another shocking twist with this traitor stuff coming from this Cypher Pole group. You know, like that.
Yeah. That's
heat.
And then we learn that then Kaku learns that, and then his entire life is just shattered before his eyes, just completely everything he ever thought he knew. Even his boy undercover was undercover.
And that brings me to another interesting point. Where is Jabra?
Oh yeah, that's a good point, man.
Like Kaku is the Zoro to Lucci, you know what I'm saying? Like, and Jabra's supposed to be the Sanji, like, but also Sanji always disappears, you know what I mean, during arcs and stuff, and does like secret stuff behind the scenes. So is that maybe like, is Jabra maybe on Egghead doing something like that and we just haven't seen him?
Maybe he's still CP9 and he just didn't get promoted. That could be it.
It could be, but I know during the Cypher Pole time skip thing, like when we got, or like the cover story, when we got to see him, we did see him like with Blueno and everyone. And Blueno, I think, like, we haven't seen him here, but he's in CP0, like at least in Film Red, he mentioned it. So for me, I feel like Jabra it's just Oda just hasn't brought him back yet.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see Jabra making a comeback as part of CP0. Just he's not really that important, so he was just kind of like the last second opponent for Sanji.
Well, didn't he say he was Robin's brother? Which I know he was like lying, but it's like that's one of those things where it's like Oda, like Oda, you know, it's like when
that dude's not Robin's, but that dude's no one's brother.
Like, but what if it's like what if like her?
The joke was the wolf in the Goldilocks thing,
right? But what if we find out Robin's dad had like a child with another mother or something, like, or another woman? You know what I'm saying?
Jabra.
And it's Jabra.
That would be ridiculous. Absurd.
I'm just saying, man. You never know.
No.
Like, what if Olvia wanted to adventure too much, and he's like, well, like, I guess I gotta. Well, I don't know which one's older, so I guess I gotta see which one he would have been with first. But I don't know. It's just one of those funny things. It's like, I wouldn't be shocked if Oda brought it back. You know.
Out of curiosity, how long did it take you to realize it was Olvia and not Olivia? Because it took me a fucking surprising amount of time to realize it was Olvia.
I think I thought it was Olivia until I started reading the manga, because I just talked to my friends casually up until that point, and it was just like a Mandela effect, because it looks like Olivia and it almost looks like they misspelled it. Like, it's like, oh, that's Olivia. It's not, you know. But then once I got in the manga and like I was like looking stuff up, I'm like, okay, I gotta like find out more. Like what happened with Robin's past? Like when I first got caught up, like just refreshing myself. And it was like probably around then, but definitely there was a period of time where it was Olivia for sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought for like a solid year, it was like Olivia, right? And it just came to mind.
Yep. So last thing I want to talk about is still going off this Blackbeard topic, is I want to talk about what his plans are a little bit, because I have a couple spicy takes that I want to get your thoughts on. If you have any spicy takes, definitely let me know. But You know, I brought this up a long time ago, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I made a video on it. But, you know, Blackbeard has pudding, and we just found Punk Records, which has limitless information almost, right? Like the next best thing to limitless. And so pudding, pudding could just access the memories, right? Just whatever he wants. True. And so then it's like, okay, well, that's all possible, but what does he want that for, right? Like, why would he want that? And that led me to a couple angles where, one, maybe he can use that to control the Seraphims, because like I don't know exactly how that works, but you know, like he would at least find out how they work, and like maybe like he can use the brain of Vegapunk to somehow control it, because it is Vegapunk's brain, like to make orders or something, so that way he could have the Seraphim under his control potentially. And the reason why I think that's like a good or a potential option, that at least that he would want the Seraphim, is because he just went and tried to get Boa to use her fruit and he wasn't able to, but now we see there's a Boa Seraphim with the fruit, right? So it's like, oh, well, he could take her. And also, we haven't seen him yet, but a lot of people presume there's going to be an S Gecko somewhere for Gecko Moria. And he also tried getting Moria on his crew, and we don't know what happened with that. I feel like Moria probably just agreed to join, but maybe he didn't, right? Because he also got out of Marineford when it looked like he was going to die for sure, and he managed to escape. So maybe he got out of Hachinosu somehow too. So it could be like maybe he didn't end up getting Moria, and so that way he can get Boa and Moria on his crew and like use those powers at will. And that led me to one final point that is maybe the most important point of all this, is that he's probably going to pack up Law, right? Like I feel like that's gonna happen, especially after the Shanks chapter, and he could maybe somehow use Punk Records information and all that to take Law's powers, not even kill him, but just do like what they did to Senor Pink and just like take the powers, put it into Green Blood, put it into Seraphim, command the Seraphim to then do the Immortal Youth surgery on Blackbeard. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's a good idea.
Because he didn't know Seraphims existed, at least it seems like, until he got to Amazon Lily, but that was a few weeks ago, right? Like he's had time to plan since then, so he might have saw that and been like, guys, we got to get our hands on those. You know, like that's, if we can control those. And maybe that's like Lafitte found out how they work, because like he probably overheard Lucci talk about the authority chips and all that, and maybe they put together this plan. Oh, we need to go get Egghead, and somehow we're gonna, or just the Stella. It could just be the Stella, and the same thing, all of it applies, right? Because he's a scientist for hire. If you have money, he might work with you, right? And Blackbeard probably does have money, and so it just, that's also a thing where he just will do it for them, because Vegapunk's kind of like a morally gray person. So I don't know, what you think?
That's an interesting idea. And now that you mention it, the fact that he saw the Seraphim, right? He saw the Seraphim on Amazon Lily, and he didn't know about, based on what he said, he didn't know about them prior to that.
He was like a Lunarian.
Yeah, exactly. So he knew about Lunarians. He didn't know about Seraphim. So that tells me, let's say building off of all of our ideas, if there's a traitor on Egghead Island that's part of the Blackbeard pirates, right? They would have had to have been someone that got here when all this shit started going down recently, as opposed to someone who has worked on the island for a while, like a Vegapunk. Because if that was the case, then Blackbeard would have already known about the Seraphim. He would have known about the SSG well in advance. He wouldn't have been surprised. What this tells me, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense, is like he saw the Seraphim on this island. He put two and two together. Okay, this is what the SSG is. This is what the world government's been hiding.
Yep.
All right. Well, now I got to go hit up Vegapunk's island, because if this is going down right now, I got to go see what's on that island. So like maybe, yeah, he could be looking to actually steal them for himself. And then use their powers. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Because he's also a devil fruit guy, right? Like I think I've said this in every video where I've mentioned Blackbeard. One of the first things I say is, this is Oda's devil fruit man. Like that, anything to do where you can leverage devil fruits to be stronger, or you know, whatever, he's gonna do it. Like that's that Oda. Blackbeard is because if we all existed in the One Piece world, we'd probably also be thinking, we gotta go get devil fruits. Like we need some crazy powers. Like it'd be so Blackbeard is that. Yeah, exactly. And Blackbeard's that version, right? Like Blackbeard is that guy who was dropped in the One Piece world and was like, bro, these things are just so OP. I just need to leverage all these and I'll be unstoppable. And so whenever now we see an option where you don't even have to kill the user, and you can have multiple people with the same power now, like Paramecia's only, apparently, right? But you can also duplicate zones, but whatever. It's like that to me, if Blackbeard's learned that, it would, like, Oda would almost, like, he would almost have to address it in my mind, where it's like Blackbeard would have to recognize, like, hey, that's a useful piece of technology there, sir. Like, yeah. I want that, you know. So I like it.
He's the guy for that. He's the guy to do that sort of thing. Like, of all characters, is to like be an opportunist, see an area for opportunity, something he didn't plan for, but is like, wait, this is even better than what I planned. Like, this helps me even more. You're telling me I don't need Boa Hancock? I can just get like this robot that listens to whatever I tell it to do? Yeah, all right, let's go get that instead. It's way better.
Because while he clashed with the Mihawk one, the other Seraphim on that island was the Boa one, right? He already he probably knows the Boa one exists. Right, and so Boa didn't use her power. Or no, she did. No, she didn't use her powers there. She just sent like a laser blast. So he may not have seen it there that like they can use the powers or whatever. But he probably saw right away like, wait, they're cloning people and making them Lunarians and all this stuff. And like, you know, he can like take people's devil fruit powers from them. So maybe he can almost just sense they have a devil fruit power somehow. Because like he did do a black or like he did a black vortex or black hole. He did a black hole against the Mihawk Seraphim, and so maybe somehow in that process he's like, whoa, there's like a devil fruit power here. Like he could like almost sense it because that's how it works, right? Like he normally does vortex, but so
that's an interesting idea too. Like, can you sense? I wonder if he'd be able to use his devil fruit to like do some interesting shit with the green blood or like with the artificial powers, right? Because we haven't seen how his fruit interacts with artificial devil fruit abilities.
Dude, right? Can he just absorb like green blood into his darkness and he like has all the powers?
Yeah, because he says he can touch the true body of the user, but that's if you eat a devil fruit, presumably you have like a true body or whatever. But if you didn't eat a devil fruit, you just have this green blood coursing. Like, what's the true body there? Like, what does that exactly mean? How does it work if he touches one of them? Right? Like, does he cancel their power too? Like,
and they need like the flame off to use the power, or like we don't know that confirmed, but I've seen a lot of people bring that up, where like they only use the powers when the flames are off. So it's like there might be a trade off there, which is really interesting because King had his flame on and was using his fruit. So there's like it's almost like a nerf a little bit to the devil fruit powers, like whenever you start duplicating, because like the zones, Vegapunk said, we haven't confirmed if these can awaken yet, so it's like maybe they're nerfed a little bit. And then same thing with this, maybe like the Lunarians can't use both at the same time if they're using green blood. Like, I don't know how that works.
Makes sense. It could just be an imperfection. I think that might just be like the classic imperfection with the technology. The awakening thing might be true. I buy into the idea that Momo maybe can't awaken his fruit, and then by the same token,
good parallel to Kaido is all I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's a good parallel to Kaido. Yeah, because we didn't see him awaken it either, and then like on top of that, yeah, maybe it's like you can recreate the Lunarians, but you can't it's not perfect. Like you can't get, or you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have all the benefits of the invincibility or whatever, and be able to use all these other magical powers. That would also just be broken. I'm glad Oda wrote in some sort of failsafe.
Save there, and even like, normal devil fruits are nerfed. You can't go in the water. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad there's nerfs.
Yeah. Same. And I think that's like, personally, that's one of my favorite things about Oda's like world he created is like, I mean, I'm in no attempt to shit on these series because I actually love all these, but like in Dragon Ball, it's like just continuously like Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan, fuse, like generally speaking, then you get Ultra Instinct. It's just like kind of the same thing, but like in this world, it's like a very confined system. There's like a lot of rules and like it all makes sense and it's very applicable to the world they're in. It's like one of the things that pulled me into it. And so I love to see that this is being carried over here as well with Egghead, potentially with this Blackbeard stuff.
I like that One Piece took an easy route to making people have interesting abilities by making it so that devil fruits are this mechanic where it's a trade. It's not just I become stronger. With something like Dragon Ball, and like you said, like I respect Dragon Ball. I love Dragon Ball for various reasons. One thing I will say I don't think Dragon Ball has a lot of is depth in combat. I think at the end of the day, what Dragon Ball does kind of boil down to is the stronger opponent wins, or the stronger fighter will end up winning with the stronger fighter's spirit, and that's why Goku comes out on top. But with One Piece, you have this mechanic that a lot of characters have to make this choice, and a lot of people have to make a a gamble as to whether or not they will trade immediate power for that trade-off. And that kind of goes with everything else too. It's like nothing in One Piece is just given to you easily. You don't just get invincible or immediate power without any sort of drawbacks. That goes with the Rumble Ball. That goes
True.
with Devil Fruits. There's so many things. That goes with even swords. The strongest swords, you can't just pick up Enma and then all of a sudden you have an amazing sword and you're really strong. No, it's gonna suck the life out of you. You need to be strong enough to wield that sword. There's a gamble. You can't just use a cursed blade. Cursed blades are better swords, but they come with the, if you're not experienced enough, it'll bite you in the ass. So like every trade of like power in One Piece where you get power, it's always in exchange for something or at the risk of something. So there's a balancing factor that makes it it feels a little bit more realistic, I guess, in that regard.
Yep. Yeah. And I also love like when there's like a clear mismatch in the devil fruits. It always matters, right? Like for instance, Luffy and Eneru. That's a classic example, right? Like that's so amazing that carries forward. Like the battle system. It's like in some ways it's like I definitely don't feel this way, but maybe some people could see like, oh, that's like too dumb. Like he made it way too easy, like so he can beat this god creature. But I'm like, no. This to me, it's the opposite. To me, it's like we've had this rubber guy this whole time, and we see this lightning guy, and it's like this is how the world works. Like sometimes you're gonna get really freaking unlucky, and you're gonna lose, and like. Luffy versus Magellan is another example. Like I would probably say Magellan's probably or was at that time probably stronger than Luffy, anyways, but. Luffy's a physical attacker. He has no chance against Magellan, right? Like, even though he was doing a little bit of damage to him, no chance. And that's what we saw, right? That was probably the closest Luffy's been to death outside of him actually dying in Wano for a second and, like, Marineford. Like, that's... Yeah. So, it's... To me, that's, like, probably one of my favorite... That's probably the thing that hooked me to One Piece the most, is, like, it's so... It just makes sense all the time. Like, it connects perfectly. There's very infrequently, like, a... power issue where like, okay, well, like this fruit shouldn't have worked here, or whatever. It's like it's always makes sense, at least most of the time.
Yeah, and people will complain about Haki because they'll say, oh, Haki removes that because any devil fruit can just be canceled out by Haki. But I will also say at the end of the day, we need to have it be a story where like the Pirate King isn't just the luckiest guy. It's not the Pirate King can't just be the guy who happened to run into the most successful amount of matchups to his devil fruit. Like, oh, he just happened to get lucky by picking the right devil fruit where that he had the least amount of counters out there to stop him and therefore he just won everything. Right. There has to be an element of like working for it. So yeah, Haki is that working for it element. Your devil fruit gets countered, but at least you can you might have to work harder, but you can out Haki that and you can work your way out of that situation. So I do like that. I think there's multiple layers to the system, and I like it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
And I also love, Haki is how you hit Logia users and all that. But I think there could even be an argument where like, well, if you spend a lot of time working on your Haki, like how good is your fruit? Or if you use your fruit all the time and you don't use Haki, that's also going to hurt you, right? Like for example, like Luffy wasn't awakened when he fought Katakuri, and that definitely helped Katakuri. And Doflamingo, same thing, right? Like they have honed their fruits, but Luffy is like his Haki and like just the way his fruit worked, like with Gear 4 and all that, really helped him out too. So it's like there's such like a And even Katakuri is actually an even crazier example because he was awakened and had future sight. Yeah. So it was an example of like, damn, like there's levels to this,
Yeah.
So
that's what I love about it.
Yep. Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to get into a couple more bit chats. I don't know what you want to call those, but whatever they are from Twitch. Sure. And then I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Matt Cypher said, could York become one of the 10 Titanic captains, just like how the other captains killed cellmates and Impel Down? York did the same thing. That parallel you just crafted, I never considered that angle, and that angle means a lot to me. I probably need to think, because York also did allude to the fact like she knew that the government would double cross her or something, right? Like,
yeah, the one argument I have against York is what I said earlier, where if Blackbeard was surprised at the Seraphim even existing, then whoever the 10th captain is couldn't be someone that would have been there for the entire development of the Seraphim. True. Because he would have known about it,
Yeah, and the 10th Titanic captain has existed since sometime during the time skip, I think, and these events started like 3 months ago, which like again, Oda can always like rework the timeline a little bit to make it make more sense, but it would also seem like weird timing to me that like like York officially becomes the 10th Titanic captain, just like on the first call, like when they start planning this together. You know, like maybe one thing that she could be important after she does it all for him and helps him out. Then it's like, oh, they have one more member. But I also wouldn't like it just because like York isn't strong. She even said it in this chapter, right? She's like, I'm too weak to do anything. You Seraphim got to do it, whatever it was. So it's like that layer kind of is iffy, but I do think York has more going on than we see. Like she probably has called other people that we don't know of. Like I don't know who, honestly, but I could definitely see her being. I hope so. Yeah, I hope there's more to her.
I hope for her character there's more to her.
And then Matt's. What were you saying?
I just hope it's more than just the twist. You know, I hope she's not just the vehicle for the twist to happen.
Yep, same. Yeah. And I think I mentioned this in your stream. This is like some kind of tinfoil stuff, but you know, York, you know, R's and L's can be kind of switched, right? So York could also be yolk, like an egg yolk, and they're on Egghead Island. And what's inside the egg? It's the brain, it's the punk records, it's the thoughts, it's the memories. So it's kind of funny that the yolk, it kind of is the traitor of the punk record situation. And so that also leads me to an idea. And this is kind of crazy again, but we're talking about the Dyson Sphere earlier. Well, the core of the Earth kind of looks like an egg yolk, right? It's like glowing yellow-orange ball inside the egg, right? And the Earth isn't even perfectly spherical. It's actually oblong, like an egg is. Yeah. It's not quite as drastic as an egg, but it's not perfectly spherical. So, so to me, it's like, does that maybe say that like the Earth is punk record, or like an old punk records, and the inside of the yolk, you know, is the memories, like the dreams that you speak, you know, you've talked about a lot before. Like you said, it was ocean, but it could also be, it's the lava, the yolk, whatever that substance is. It's a similar thing, right? So
100%. Yeah, I think there's some. I definitely think that's intentional with the design of Egghead.
And actually, I don't want to spoil it, but I just want to give everyone a warning that shout out to Kev Dog, who has a great Egghead video coming out soon. I saw the thumbnail. The thumbnail is absolutely stupendous. That's like one of my favorite thumbnails I've probably seen in a minute. So, Lee J.
The work in progress of that. It looked great.
Oh, you did? Oh, he. Lee J. drew it, and he added the correct font. I don't want to. He'll send you the picture, or I can send it to you. But everyone be on the lookout for that video. Is mainly it.
Oh yeah.
But the last thing is from Matt Cypher. He said, I think you guys are thinking too small. What if Lafitte was working for Emu the whole time? That way he could monitor Lucci and move Blackbeard into the right place to take out Ace. So you're saying Lafitte is a traitor to Blackbeard? I mean, it would be fitting, I'll be honest, to have Blackbeard's crew have a traitor in it somewhere. But at the same time, it's like, without seeing the origins of the crew, it's so hard. Because Blackbeard was like in the shadows for a long time, right? And Lafitte seemed to have joined him during that time. So it's like, does Emu really know so much that she's able, or he or whoever is able to, you know, predict? Oh, this unnamed guy is going to be really important. I need to keep an eye on him. Like that's kind of my issue if it is Emu. Because I've also brought up like Sengoku's goat really stands out to me, like as another animal that's just always with the top government official, and he eats paper, like important government paper. So it's like Emu may be using the goat to make sure that information is destroyed like it's supposed to be, type of deal. So it would be interesting if Hattori is Lafitte. I don't know if I would say that's this is possible, but if Hattori isn't Lafitte, then I could see Hattori being an Emu camera, you know, or something. I could see that. But if I can't see Lafitte probably being a traitor, is probably my biggest issue, I would say.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
And Mr. Bushido super chatted €2, last call, right the last possible second. How powerful will Dragon and Garp be compared to Shanks? I put Shanks above both of them probably, but I would say Dragon is pretty damn. They're all very damn close, I would say. Garp in his prime might be Shanks, like what Shanks can do now is probably what Garp was doing in his prime, is what I imagine. So he's a little bit older, so I would say he's probably a little bit weaker. And then Dragon, it's just too hard to say for Dragon for me. I don't, you know, like he's obviously top tier, but he's done literally nothing.
It's really hard for me to defend Dragon, I mean, I want to say that, look, it's like Luffy's dad, man. Like the guy, like Luffy is this guy who keeps going above and beyond the entire story, and it's like the guy, he literally came from that dude's nuts. Like I gotta say, like Dragon's probably gotta be a badass. He's gotta be like a really, really formidable opponent, you know?
Yep.
So like at the end of the day, even though he hasn't done anything, I feel like just by virtue of being related direct, like being the guy who created Luffy, he has to be, especially because we know that like from all the other revolutionaries, when they talk about Dragon, they all of them are like, oh Luffy, you're just like, you know, apple doesn't fall far from the tree sort of thing, right? Like we've heard that with Luffy when they compare him to Dragon, and it's like, if this is what Luffy's like, Dragon's already an adult. He is the most wanted man in the world, and so on and so forth. I gotta give him some benefit of the doubt, but he also just hasn't done anything. It's just so hard. I want to put him at the top. I feel like realistically, of those three, I would like, if I had to just use logic, I would guess he's the strongest just by virtue of being Monkey D. Dragon. But
yeah,
we actually saw Shanks do something now.
Exactly.
And it's like it's like crazy that like I feel like we have to give it to Shanks, right?
And I would agree. And like, you know, for Shanks, even before this moment, we could at least say like, oh, him and Mihawk used to duel, and Mihawk's the world's strongest swordsman, so he's got to be really strong, right? Or you might say, like, oh, well, he stopped Marineford. Like, they didn't want to fight anymore when Shanks showed up. He's got to be really powerful. Like, there's at least things where it's like, okay, we know he's strong, but Dragon is literally like he stopped Smoker. You know what I mean? Like, that's like grabbing Smoker's whatever that like baton thing. You know, that's like, you know, like at the time it was very impressive, I guess, but it's kind of like. I think Dragon's gonna be really crazy, like it can be like amazingly, you know, like strong, and also have like a really deep backstory or like reason he's doing the things he's doing. It's gonna be amazing, but it's like so hard for me to like put stock in him at this point, just because I just haven't seen it. There's not even like Dragon went toe to toe with Roger at one point. Like
there's no like mythology or whatever behind Dragon that like helps us hype him up. There's nothing.
Exactly.
It's just we just know that he's the most wanted. But that has nothing to do with combat, because we know that he's the most wanted because he's straight up leading a revolution. So like that he could be the weakest dude in the world and still be the most wanted dude in the world.
Precisely.
If that's what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah, Dragon's one of those guys where like I have like no theories on like, and I really don't know any, like I have a theory on like what his story was or why. Like obviously like the world's an issue, like he probably doesn't like celestial dragons, like all that's pretty safe to assume, but it's like, you know, I have no idea when he's going to come back into the story and fight. Like, I don't know who he's going to fight at the end. Like, Emu makes a lot of sense. But, like, Luffy's got to beat Emu. So, like, does Dragon fight Emu and die? You know, like, I don't know. Like, he's one of those guys where I have no idea what Oda's going to do with him. But
yeah,
it's gonna
I think
be
he's going to die at some point. I just don't know what the setup for that's going to be. But I feel like he has to.
Man, I could see Dragon dying. I could see Shanks dying, Garp dying. Like, everyone might die by the end, man. Like,
all of them have death flags. Every single one.
And it would be, I feel like, pretty One Piece-esque to have like the full, like the new era. Like, you know what I mean? Like all those top dogs in the last era die because they got us to the new era. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they pass the torch in that way.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Remigio Grosso. I probably butchered that name, but I see that you're actually Innocent Cauliflower, so I'm gonna just call you that. I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for becoming a member. I know we talk all the time, so it feels like you're a member anyway, but I appreciate you doing it officially.
Nice.
And 3-Day, thank you for saying congrats on 20 subs. I really appreciate that. Hidden was actually the first one to say anything, so big props to you. Thank you, bro.
Let me congratulate you again. Congratulations. You worked very hard to get here. I love to see it, bro.
I appreciate it, man. And I've said it a million times, but I literally wouldn't be here without you and the super thoughtful feedback whenever I was scripting Lafro Tale. Like that, obviously, that's probably like half of those 20K.
Hey, man, you made the theory, you made the video. You did a great job, bro. So here's to plenty more. There's gonna be more.
I appreciate you. There's
gonna be more Lafro Tales too. There's gonna be plenty more Lafro Tales that you write.
Hey, I can't wait till we get to the end and it actually happens. But what was I was about to say? Oh, okay. Well, the question I want to ask you though, to end the stream, the question I just want to ask is generally, what thing are you most excited for coming up in the final saga? Now, I mean, if you want to pick an endgame thing, you can, but I maybe more so like this immediate, because we have like 15 different plot lines going on right now, right? Like important ones. At least that's how it feels. So what thing are you most excited to see, like where it's going, or how something ends, or what are you most excited to finally see happen?
It's a tough question to answer, because a lot of my reasons are going to overlap for all of them, where mostly I want to just get the full picture on what Oda's trying to tell us with this story. And like one of my biggest things with One Piece is I want to know, I guess more than anything else, what I want to know is why all the suffering for like 800 years? That's the biggest question that's like on my mind when I read One Piece. It's like, why the adventure in the first place? Like what could have happened on such a grand scale that would have screwed over the world for so long, that would require all of this to happen just to even make a little dent? And it's like that's the thing that is like, we're all caught up in the current events of like the craziness of like Shanks making his move, Luffy on Egghead, look at all these guys, they're gonna fight, there's gonna be some crazy war. For me, like, that's all fun, that's all exciting, interesting stuff, and I can't wait to get there. But for me, the question that's in my mind the entire time while waiting for that is why. Like, what, like, the fact, like, how we even got here. I need to see the Void Century flashback, I think, more than anything else in One Piece, is like, that is what I'm waiting for. And I guess that goes hand in hand with what the One Piece is. But even if that doesn't include the actual identity of the One Piece itself, I need to know what the world looked like back then. I need to know what happened back then to cause all of this, and I need to see some form of justification. Not that it would be valid justification, but I need to get a reason from the villain, the villains of this story, and Eam or whoever ties into the Void Century. I need to know why the fuck they went out of their way to be such an awful person for all these years. I need to know what the impetus for the whole story is, really. That's what it comes down to.
I love that answer, because that's the why of everything at the end of the day, right? Because even like when we talk about bringing the dawn, that's the end of the 800-year suffering. When we talk about finding the One Piece, that is probably going to be connected to Luffy ending 800 years of suffering for people, right? Hiding the history of the Void Century, that's hiding the reason why people are still suffering, right? Every plot line can be wrapped back to why is this happening? Like, why is the government in control? And you know, whenever you were talking about, like, you want to hear the villains, like the evil people of the world, talk about why they're doing this, something that popped in my head is, I would love to see when Luffy even meets Emu. It doesn't have to be in the fight, but remember when Kaido was about to lose and he was like, what world do you want to make, Straw Hat? Yeah, I would love to see that same thing, but Luffy's like why did you make this world? You know, like something like, it's like a reverse thing, like you know, everyone's trying to make the world what they want. You made it what you want. Why did you do that? You know, like, and then I can already see Oda's going to hit us with like a, damn, I'm morally conflicted right now. You know, like, damn, Emu may have done the right thing. I don't know. You know, like, I didn't know Emu was like that. Like, I didn't know that the Ancient Kingdom was like risking humanity or something. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, right? Like the Ancient Kingdom is painted in all these different ways. We have one view of the Ancient Kingdom that talks about it as being this highly technologically advanced land of the future. We get looks at it from Egghead and we see how it's all this fantastical stuff comes from the Void Century. But we also learn in the same breath, the Void Century that created all these amazing things and all these marvels of technology was also a period of great war. A lot of questions come to my mind when I think about this. Like, for example, what came before the Void Century? Obviously that history is recorded. It must have been altered greatly from what we see now. They cut out the whole 100 years, and everything surrounding those 100 years has been manipulated to suit the narrative of the blank 100. But, you know, what came in the world before? Where did the sun god need all these magical, mystical, amazing things? You could only imagine they would have come from a magical place, a place with all these advancements, a place that was, you know, a lot closer to paradise than what we have now in the One Piece world. And then if that's the case, if there existed a paradise before, and we're here now, what happened? Right? Because if the end of One Piece is to achieve this goal or whatever, is to free the world from tyranny,
Well, we're gonna find out what caused that tyranny in the first place. Is the solution at the end of One Piece going to absolve us from ever having to deal with that tyranny again? Is that going to prevent the cycle from starting again in 800 years? Could we have another Void Century after Luffy saves the world? Like, I want to know exactly how we got here, where we're going, and how the future can actually remain bright and be avoided, so that the ending of the story feels like there was an actual solution posed to some sort of moral, ethical, or philosophical problem with governing people or ruling the world or ruling society. Like, there's obviously a statement Oda's trying to make here, and I want to figure out what that statement exactly is. Yeah.
You put that beautifully. Like, the way I think of it, and this is one of my things that I want to find out the most for sure, is why is Luffy going to succeed where Joy Boy didn't? What happened that made Joy Boy fail, and all this suffering started, and he wasn't around anymore, and he had to do all this stuff, all this setup, trying to bring his will back in the future. Why is it that Luffy is going to be successful? What is different this time that's going to make Luffy be the one that saves the world and not Joy Boy? That, to me, that is, and that's going to unravel into everything, right? So that, to me, that's like the ultimate question of like, what happened? Why did Joy Boy fail? What's Luffy gonna do? Right? That is like, my top tier thing I want to see.
That's more important in my opinion to see than the fight, like the cool fights. As much as I'm looking forward to them, and like those are going to be hype, and it's going to be hype to see. For example, it's going to be really cool when we get to Laugh Tale.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really cool when we meet Eam and there's the empty throne, and you have all the climactic war and Luffy versus Blackbeard and getting revenge for Ace and Akainu. That's all awesome. That all sounds really great, but none of it matters if this Void Century stuff doesn't get properly answered. So that's the thing I'm like, that's the number one wish. I can't wait to see that. Like, once that flashback begins, the moment that the background of the pages on the chapter, it turns from white to black, and we start getting panels that take us 800 years into the past. Lock me in. I have to have a fucking seatbelt built into this chair, because if it doesn't, I'm going to fly. My head's going to go through the ceiling. It's going to fly through the ceiling. That chapter is going to be insane. Like, so
I know you brought up the ancient kingdom being the kingdom of One Piece, right? Like, could you imagine 900 years ago, kingdom of One Piece, and it's like, like we're done. We're done. Like, best chapter ever immediately. Like, I don't even need to see anything else. Like, that's top 10. Yeah,
right.
So I agree that the ancient kingdom is really the meat and potatoes of the story, and while I love the fights and everything else, that's really, I wouldn't say the cherry on top, but maybe, like the second course of the meal, whatever it is. But the meat and potatoes is the Void Century, why everything is happening. So
what's Luffy versus Arlong without Bellemere,
Yes.
That's the thing. If you just jump to the fight, it wouldn't matter. But the fight mattered. We care about Luffy versus Arlong, and we love the walk to Arlong Park because it's preceded by the Help Me scene. Yeah. It's preceded by the flashback that we get that tells us about everything leading up to that fight. And that's what the Void Century flashback is. It's the Help Me for the Void Century. It's the Help Me for the Ancient Kingdom. And then once we get that Help Me, that's when that's the peak of One Piece for me, is when we have that, and then Luffy's resolution to fix it is going to be where the story peaks in my book, and I feel like that's number one on the list. Number one.
I couldn't have put any better myself, man. I think it's amazing that you and I, and obviously everyone here in the chat, other creators, we all get to experience this as it's happening, right? Like, we don't know the end yet, and that's what's so amazing about having moments like this and getting to share moments like, with the chat and everyone else. It's just, we're only going to get this chance once. This story obviously has impacted us in millions of ways, and it's coming to a close, but it's going to be a fun ride. So I'm looking forward to it. So Hayden, you got anything else you want to plug about your channel? Anything else you're working on?
No, I have a new video out. I put out a new video 2 days ago. It's a theory about Mihawk and Shanks. A lot of sensitive Mihawk fans are not seeming to love this theory. So if you think that would be you, I would caution you going into that video. It might ruffle your feathers a little bit, but it is a theory about Mihawk and Shanks' relationship. So if that sounds interesting, go check it out. It seems to be people seem to like it, but you know,
Yeah, hey.
for the big Mihawk fans out there, I'm just gonna warn you: don't get upset at me.
Hey.
When you go into the video and then you don't agree, and it's like I'm not insulting Mihawk. Okay, I love Mihawk. I think Mihawk's dope. I just, you know, it's a theory. It's a theory. Okay, I'm not trying to ruin the story. So
Hey.
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Saran Wrap over there says he's a huge Mihawk fan and he loved your video. So
Hey, really?
Hey,
Oh,
so there
that's
you go.
good.
A little bit of love.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. No, I feel like maybe my perspective is getting skewed. It's just yeah, I saw a lot of Mihawk, a lot of like big Mihawk fans were like, oh no, there's no way this is possible. Either way, I think everyone should check it out, at least consider the idea, and if you know, if you don't like it, whatever, that's fine. I don't care. I mean, it's a remake of an old theory anyway. So
and the you know, don't let the few bad comments you know, you know, because that happens to me sometimes too. I'm like, oh, that might be like a tiny hole in the theory, or oh, that's like a, you know, that might be a good way to think about it. And I see 10 other people strengthening it, you know, and I'm like, oh, I need to stop freaking out. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel bad sometimes. Like if I like hype people up on this, like, oh, I'm making this great like Mihawk Shanks video, and then like if you're like a big Mihawk Shanks fan, and then you pull up and you feel like I'm just slandering your character. Like I feel bad with that. That's why I just have to preface it like, just be ready. There's gonna be some takes in this one, but if that sounds fun, check it out, because I think a lot of people seem to be liking it. So
I haven't seen it yet, but just quick question: did you bring up the fact that Shanks is 1 centimeter taller than Mihawk is?
I did. I did bring that up.
Okay, good. Because to me, I know it seems like a small thing, but Zoro's 1 centimeter taller than Sanji. Shanks is 1 centimeter taller than Mihawk, and King is 1 centimeter taller than Queen. 1 centimeter taller than Queen.
Yep. So, there's a lot of. They also have the same birthday. There's a lot of interesting little details about Mihawk and Shanks, but if anyone doesn't know, the theory basically is just that Mihawk was once on the Red Hair Pirates. So if that sounds interesting, go check that out. And aside from that, I've been streaming more, so just you know, stop by my streams, guys. I see a bunch of people in the chat here. It would be nice to see some of you guys pop by my streams in the future, and I would definitely welcome you with open arms. And aside from that, I very, very much enjoyed this discussion today. I was like, it's funny because I didn't even notice like how much time had passed, but I just realized now it's like we're bordering on 3.5 hours. It felt like 1.5 hours.
Yep, this is the longest. The longest Davy Dak fight yet. I think we're a little bit past the Parvision. So
hey, that's a badge of honor, my friend. No, thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. Great questions, great discussions. I mean, couldn't have picked a better chapter to do this with. So I'm elated. This is great, man.
Everything fell into place perfectly, and thank you for coming. And I want to say, like Hidden was saying, definitely go check out his channel if you haven't. His streams are awesome. He's great on the camera. I was a fan of him before I ever talked to him, and he's also working on a One Piece rap. So
oh yeah, that I am working on that too. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so anyone that likes rap music, I'm working on a One Piece rap. We hit a donation goal, so that's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up probably within the month, or not. Well, not within March, but like within the next month, I guess.
That'll be hype, man. I'm looking forward to it. And the last thing I want to say that we're gonna end the stream is quick shout out to Lartnest past Demain. I know I'm butchering. I'm sorry, bro. Lartnest. I'll say that much. He's the emu guy. If anyone knows who the emu guy is from Twitter, the guy who draws all the emu images, and he also drew one that was like Sengoku basically, and he had an afro, and he tagged me in it, and that actually ended up getting mentioned on Roger's stream, where Joy Boy then mentioned me, and then I ended up reaching out to Joy Boy, and that's how we had that stream last week. So I just want to give a big shout out to you, bro. Thank you for the awesome art, and you know, maybe unknowingly, but still getting me connected with Joy Boy. So it was awesome. So thank you very much.
You know what's funny about that? The emu guy, I put your emu image in my emu video, and that video was a video that helped me and Morge connect, and then we got on stream.
There you go. Keep doing it. That's the message.
The emo-art is it's killing it.
Yes,
it's very, very indirectly, but you did have that effect, so that's cool.
Yeah, you're changing the world, man. You're trying to guess emu, and look, you're improving the world. You know what I mean? It's maybe there's some parallels. So thank you, Lartnest. You're awesome, and thank you everyone else for being here. Thank you for the super chats, and thank you, Hidden.
Thank you, man.